And start with the pledge of allegiance according to the agenda. We'll rise for the pledge of allegiance. Let's have it. Representative Grafton, lead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Please be seated. And then I'm going to read the notice of the meeting. Are you going to do it?
Notice is hereby given that a public meeting of the Strafford County Legislative Delegation Executive Committee is scheduled to be held Wednesday, September 4th, 2024 at 4 p.m. This meeting will require a physical forum, has remote access for the public, and will be held as noted above in the cafe conference room, lower level of the William A. Grimes Justice and Administrative Building, 259 Cattle Farm Road, Dover, New Hampshire, to conduct the following business. Approved minutes of April 26, 2024 Executive Committee meeting. Presentation of proposed 2024-2029 capital improvement plan. Supplemental appropriation of $16,421,951 for proposed 2024-2029 capital improvement plan. Issuance of $16,421,951 in bonds to fund the 2024-2029 capital improvement plan. Renew and approve second quarter 2024 budget report and any other business which may legally become before the committee.
Thank you very much. So, and just to clarify, because it's not readily apparent on the stated agenda, that because we had one subcommittee which did not have a quorum, and therefore, even though there was a presentation of some facts, but since we didn't have a quorum, it could not be a meeting, and there was no recommendation, as indeed there could not be. So that will be part of the presentation, right? Under supplement, so the presentation proposed 2024 CIP, which is item, yeah. Okay. And also, we will take up at some point, the fact that one of our executive committee members, Representative Cecilia Rich, has resigned from the House as a result of further deterioration of her health status. And therefore, one of the members of the executive committee is now no longer a member of the House. Therefore, we have to.
What was that again, Peter? I'm sorry.
What?
What was it again?
Cecilia Rich.
Okay.
Yeah. She has resigned. We hadn't heard about it just a couple of days ago. Of course, she is no longer a member of the executive committee, and since the delegation elects members of the executive committee, that's an issue that I want to take up this evening. And you'll make a note of it there so that when the time comes under any other business, we discuss that further. Okay, so the first item of the agenda is a roll call. So please call.
Bailey,
Present.
Bixby,
It's going to be a few minutes late.
Burnham. Here. Fitzpatrick,
Here.
Harrington,
Here.
Corrigan,
Here.
Howard. I am here. Newton,
Yeah.
Peter,
Here.
Potenza,
Present.
Southford,
Here.
Wall,
Good night.
He's- Yep.
Well,
Just
she
coming in
wouldn't
right
hear
now.
what I said. Just say yes.
Wall.
Here. Thank you.
Kaczynski,
He's not on there.
He's not on.
What are the only?
And,
They're calling my name at some point.
and Schmidt.
Thank President. We have a quorum, thank you very much. Okay, now item 6 is approved minutes for the April 26, 2024 executive committee meeting. A motion?
Don't move.
And moved by Representative Petrie, seconded by Representative Patrick. Is there anything which needs to be amended, removed, or added? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. At this time, we will move to item 7, presentation of proposed 2024-2029 capital improvement plan. So I attended all the subcommittee meetings, and plus the one presentation where there was no forum, and therefore it was not a meeting. At this point, I recognize the county administrator will lead off on the presentation of the CIP.
Ultimately, Mr. Chairman, what's happened over the course of the last few months is that all the department heads were asked to review their needs for the next 6 years. It's been common practice with Strafford County to do a 6-year capital plan. And that was then vetted and vetted through the commissioners and then presented to the various subcommittees. The subcommittees had a majority except for criminal justice, who did not. Was presented to the representatives who were present. However, there was not a quorum, so the best advice from the county attorney's office was to do the presentation in front of the executive committee for those items on the CIP that deal with criminal justice.
That statement was made at the time that presentation was made, that we would be taking it up before the executive committee. And how, we might as well start off with that because these are all issues that there were a couple members of the delegation present, but we didn't have a quorum, so you want to start into that?
We need to start with the sheriff's department, if you're prepared.
Yes, we're all set, and we have Major Bork and Director Cullen that's going to make the presentations. They've done extensive work on it. Between the three of us, we'll be able to answer any questions that you may have after the presentations. There's 8 different projects that'll be presented.
Before we start in, Kelly, do we have anybody on?
There are no participants right now. There are no participants.
Okay, good, very good. I expect that we may have some people zooming in, but anyway, proceed. Major, are you gonna lead off or is?
I'm gonna,
Okay,
let Justin talk about the,
okay, go ahead, John.
It's our highest priority project for the sheriff's office in this next round of capital. There's replacement of our CAD and RMS systems. Those that don't know, that is a system we use to dispatch emergency services. And we use it for records management for us here at the sheriff's office and all the towns we dispatch for. That's the software that allows the vehicles to connect to us, we can share data. The current system we have.
When can we ask questions?
You may ask a question, of course.
How long, what's the shelf life of that, system?
Estimated shelf life, I'd say 15 years or so. That's what we got out of the current system.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, we'd probably still be using the current system if they didn't, if they're getting out of the business.
When is that gonna happen?
They have not given us a formal drop dead date, but they have stopped any upgrades and they're just keeping us in service at this point. They're keeping us alive, but we're not getting any further enhancements or upgrades or updates.
It's 15 years old now.
It's a little bit older. They were originally purchased in the late 90s.
They just don't.
Good.
Yeah, just that, when do you expect to have that online if it's approved?
If approved, the timeline they had given us.
What year? What year?
This would be a year 1 project.
Year 1, okay, thank you.
Just because we don't know when they're gonna pull the plug on support our existing fleet.
Further questions to this item? Okay, go ahead.
So the total cost of the replacement for the sheriff's office dispatch and the connected towns is $1,388,168. We'll call it 1.4 million for an easy round number. And that cost includes the initial purchase and support through year 5. So there'll be no cost to any of our participating agencies until after the 5th year. So it'll be a purchase for initial equipment and support right off the bat.
That a sole source item?
It would likely have to go to bid, as is practice. This
And
was,
are there others in that business?
yes,
We could get it cheaper.
they're all around the same price range.
Yeah, Representative Harry.
And that includes training for the various towns and cities, but that use this.
Part of this package, that we got the quote on was to train every single person that uses the system. So everyone from the officer in the car to the dispatcher, evidence technicians, to detectives, to anyone that would touch the system would get training by the manufacturer. So we wouldn't go live with the system until everybody was trained and comfortable in its use.
ahead.
Will you be able to parallel systems until you get?
Yes.
Like, in other words, keep the other one alive until this one's solved online.
And the timeframe this manufacturer gave us was 18 months from the time of approval and a signed contract to go live, is their estimate for an agency of our size.
So just so I understand you correctly, and we all do, there will be, at the time that the new system is installed, and will be shut off and the new one is shut up, turned on simultaneously, so we have a seamless.
Both systems will run side by side during the implementation process. We can still use what we use today and then bring the new system online and train on it. Then at some point we would cut over to using it just for new.
Any further questions? Good? Anything else?
No, we went through this all in the meeting, so.
Okay, continue.
Next item I have for you guys is gates for the secure parking area at the rear of this building. Those were original, one that was turned into a secure parking area. So the gate openers are no longer serviceable. Electronics are no longer serviceable inside of the units. We've gotten over 20 years out of the existing system. I would expect the same out of new openers. The total estimated cost was $40,000. They weren't able to give a firm quote without actually coming out and going through everything for us. That was the ballpark number they gave us. I assume when we bid it, it would come in cheaper. That includes the gates, the software for them. They are controlled by dispatch.
Questions on this item? Okay,
Next item is upgrades to our video security and door security systems for this building. Again, we're in the state again where that equipment's no longer serviceable. It's been here since we've had, this is the second round of video surveillance, sorry, in this building. And the existing equipment's no longer supported. The storage hardware is no longer supported. And to meet a lot of the federal guidelines, we need to comply with NDAA and TAA standards, which dictates what countries of origin your equipment comes from. We need to make sure we comply with those standards when it comes to building security. This would upgrade all of the cameras in the courthouse building and a lot of the software that runs the door control systems.
question, Representative Harry.
Now that this equipment's been in place since 2014, so you're looking for about a 10-year life. Is that standard for that's what we expect the new stuff as well?
I would expect the same.
Yes, Representative Burns.
Thank you. What line items, are these included in the budget from any particular line item? And if so, are there any funding available to help apply towards these things?
We currently budget for maintenance on the systems and keep them going. But currently we replace cameras as they die or update software yearly, the newest versions as we can. We do have a budget line for maintenance on them.
But they can be utilized for any of this?
It would be such a large purchase to do all the cameras at once. It would be focus. It's $94,500 to do it. And with the way these systems are designed and the architecture behind them, you have to do it all at once. You can't just piecemeal it, unfortunately. So the technology that exists now can't talk to the new stuff. They're not back compatible.
So depends first, yeah.
So just a quick question. You just said that if a camera dies, you've replaced it. So how are you doing that now? So I'm assuming that not all of this equipment is original, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
So should we have a camera failure tomorrow out of our equipment maintenance line, we'll get a replacement that's as close to equivalent as we can find. Something that will be compatible and work.
So, but you'll wipe out that and then go, I'm kind of confused. So do you replace all, or did you, when you've replaced some, you've replaced it with some of the new stuff that you want?
We have not purchased any of the new style equipment. If we need to repair something, it's of the same type of thing that's in place today.
Okay,
I was in there,
And these again will be the same type of turnover. You'll keep one system up and then bring the other one on, make sure it works, and then turn off the old one.
At least with the recording part of it to make sure we don't lose any data.
further questions on the side? There, if you want to weigh in on any of this at any time, please, you're a little bit out of my line of sight, so just let me know if you want to comment on any of this.
Okay, like I said, between the three of us, we'll be able to answer any of your questions. They did extensive work on all of these projects and have the integral knowledge. But we're all available to jump in at any point on any specific questions, make sure everything's answered.
Well, I know that's the case, but if you have any comments you want to make, and as part of this overall presentation, please make sure you get my attention. As I say, my peripheral vision is pretty good, but I'm not sure. I can see you now, but I'm looking over there, I can't. Okay, so very good, thank you. Are you okay, Representative Burnham, on your question?
Yes, thank
Okay, very good, thank you. So, anyone else have questions? Okay, go ahead, Justin. Don't forget to speak up a little bit, because I'm not the only person in here who may be having hearing issues. Representative.
Yeah, is that a year one, item?
This one we could do, I'd prefer to do within the first few years because of equipment age, but we're still alive right now. So we could push this out to year 2 or 3 as a start target. Should that align better with the full plan? It's a more flexible item. Next item I have for you, and this could be at the end of the capital plan. So this could be year 6 item, replacement of the furniture in our dispatch center. That was installed in 2014. And this is the physical desks that the operators use and all the equipment sits on. They're used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The estimate to replace 5 positions is what we have down there is $180,000. And that was the equitable pricing from a couple different vendors. I asked for budgetary quotes from. It's another item we put out to bid like we have in the past.
Questions?
I'm just trying to follow to what,
Go ahead, Joe.
what line is this now? I've seen the admin security system updates. The next one is taser replacements.
no, we skipped forward to dispatch furniture replacement.
Yeah, dispatch furniture is what I'm wondering.
Oh, okay, you skipped down. Why did you skip the other ones?
I'm just trying to keep one person
Oh,
speaking
okay,
at a
okay.
time and make it easier for you.
All right, thank you.
So is this just for literally desks?
It's not just the desk. They are fully adjustable to be ergonomic. There's a lot of electronics involved with them for task lighting, heating and cooling. These people are sitting there 12 hours a day. For their shift. So it's much more complicated than a simple desk. It has file storage built into them. And they're ruggedized to stand up to the abuse when you use 24 hours a day.
Senator Gray, if you have any questions, be happy to entertain them as well. Just make sure I can see you pretty clearly if you have any questions. And do you have any up to this point?
No, sir.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, so is it your turn now, Steve, or Justin? You still on? Okay,
Any other questions on the dispatch furniture? And I'd be happy to show anyone if they wanna keep this dispatch center. The last item I have for you folks is gonna be our drone upgrade. This will upgrade the oldest of the drones we have in the fleet. Is a DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise is no longer supported. We actually got the final end of life notice for parts on it just this last week. What we have is it. This could be a year 5 item. 'Cause what we have will still fly for a while, but we can't repair it should something happen to it. And there's another one where there's a lot of concerns, I'm sure you've seen, of area of origin, the equipment. There's been a lot of action at the federal level discussing that. We want to make sure we're in compliance, just to replace that one piece of equipment. Estimate was $16,000 was the budgetary number we got.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Somebody
The
called.
budgetary number was $16,000 that just one vendor gave us. It's again, something that would go out to bid.
Okay. Questions? Okay, they go on. Kelly, are we picking up everything up with the owl?
Yes,
Let me know if anyone comes on the Zoom.
Will do. Last item I have to discuss with you folks is fireproof file storage. So putting our critical files into fire rated UL listed cabinets. And that would be things like personnel files that we're required to maintain, warrants, and any other sensitive documentation, just reports that we're mandated to keep. Right now it sits in normal file storage, but should there ever be a file in the building, there's a good chance of losing those hard records. This, I will admit, was quite shocking when we found the price of it. And this was just, again, a quote from one vendor, something we'd have to send out to bid. The total cost for the project was $37,000. They're about $6,000 a piece for these fire rated file cabinets. And that gives you a 2-hour rating. So they can be in fire impingement for 2 hours. Hopefully the fire department can put the fire out within those 2 hours.
Representative Harris.
So the files we have now are not fireproof? And I mean, I would expect it would be a regulation or a rule or something about keeping these type of records from the sheriff's department in files that don't burn up. So are we in violation of anything right now, or is it just
Best
not,
practices.
just not a good practice?
Just not good practice. We're required to retain the records, but doesn't specify how. This would be much better practice to put them in a fire resistant environment.
And the records are secure, so that they, overnight or whatever. And they have to be accessed under oversight by somebody who's sworn personnel, or how's that handled?
Some of them are strictly controlled like personnel records. There's only a few people that can have access to those, and that is by law who can access them and when. A lot of the stuff is CJIS compliant materials, which is regulations from the FBI on criminal justice. A lot of that stuff can be accessed by the dispatch center or sworn personnel, and they have to be within sight of the dispatch center. Like, I'll give you warrants, for example. Those are actually in the dispatch center, have to be available 24 hours a day to whoever the dispatcher is to be able to confirm them and work on.
One moment. So I have a question with regard to fingerprinting. I believe that we have one of the machines here in Strafford County that's available. I don't know whether everybody's aware of it, but you know, the old fashioned fingerprinting where you get your finger inked and the person carefully rolls it on. It has to be done by somebody who's trained, because if the prints are no good, they're no good. So, there is a machine that was developed. I've seen it demonstrated, and before my committee in Concord, we went over to some of it, went over to state police and so forth. There's a machine right now where you put your hand on the screen. The machine tells you whether it's going to be a good print. And when it's completed, that print is immediately transferred to the FBI files, okay? Because up until this point, or that point, every fingerprint analysis had to be done by a specially trained person because it requires a high level of skill and knowledge. That was a very time consuming process. So my committee, EDNA, is responsible for a lot of the agencies, and we were having a lot of people who, like, for example, nursing home personnel have to go through a security and criminal records check, and to get that done. And those agencies all have ratio requirements. They can't operate if it falls below a certain number of personnel per patient or whatever, okay? And getting somebody new through the process was taking weeks. And we had people who were the CEOs of some nursing homes coming down to Concord to get the job done because they couldn't afford to have any of their qualified personnel take off work, and then they would drop below the ratio. And so these new machines cut that price, cut that time down. And so it's a big deal, but again, very often you have to have sworn personnel to do that. So how are we in that category?
We do have one of those machines here, called the live scan machine by Academia.
Right. And we're good in terms of personnel to operate it. Okay, very good.
So
Yeah,
I'd like to
Sheriff?
add one thing historically. I've been here for a long time. In the sheriff's office, we do have a walk-in vault. At one time, all of our files were in that vault, which is pretty much fireproof. Several years back, as our investigations unit grew, we have to secure all of the evidence. And that vault has become an evidence vault. There's only 2 people in the agency that even have the combination to that. I'm not even one of them. That's how critical that particular vault is now. But it's, like I said, it's a walk-in vault. It contained all of our files prior. All of those files got displaced to other areas. One was a storage room. And when we were doing the HVAC work, we had to displace them again over to the archives. So we had them in a few different places. So this was an answer that Major Burke came up with, maybe some type of fireproof storage, but that's kind of evolved, and that's a little bit of the history on it, why we weren't always in non-compliance. It just evolved when we needed the space for more critical items, which is evidence for court.
Mm-hmm. And that vault is closed and locked every night?
Yes, sir. It's always locked.
It's always
Like I said, I don't even have the combination to it. 2 investigators do. And then we have audits on that per CALEA requirements, where we take a person that isn't even assigned to investigations and they conduct the audit to make sure every piece of evidence is there, and it always is.
Okay. Any questions for the sheriff?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I assume a lot of these records are on in the computer. And do you go offsite with backups?
Anything on the computer, we have backup locally and offsite. We have
Locally
backup.
to each department?
So, all the sheriff's office records backed up locally here at the sheriff's office.
Right.
And also offsite.
Offsite,
So there's another backup. It's
Iron Mountain, what's that?
data center offsite.
a data center offsite, okay.
Questions from anyone else?
I'm sorry,
ahead.
what's the percentage of, I know some things are gonna be hard copy, like evidence is gonna be obviously in the safe, and that's gonna be safe anyway. So how much of it are we gonna lose if we do have a fire at this point?
Every hard copy of a warrant that we have.
So that's not on electronically,
The information's in the computer, but that physical copy that's signed by the court is a physical piece of paper. So
okay, thanks. Are we gonna, is there any way to get to that point where we can digitally sign things and I mean, because that's where we're going.
yeah, at least New Hampshire, I haven't seen anything yet. I know Maine is already doing that,
Oh, is that right?
but I'm not sure.
Maybe we get some information and, save us some money.
The court would have to agree with it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Kaczynski, you have a question?
Yeah, you're saying this is 6 file cabinets?
Yes, sir.
like say four high. So I know somebody that has some gun safes, say that are fireproof, and they're substantially less in cost than something like that. Is that a possibility? I mean, large.
I mean, I'm not sure if that's true. I just know that these will meet requirements that exist for fire safety. I don't know if all the gun storage meets those requirements for file storage. It's a different
We don't have fireproof.
Yeah, 'cause
Thank you.
Further questions? Comments? By the way, Emily, if you have anything you want to weigh in on, please. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, year six, is this a year six item?
this one I would say middle of the road,
Middle of the road.
I didn't hear the answer.
middle of the road.
Huh. Okay. Continue, please.
All right,
Okay, Steve.
so I have two
Speak up
items.
as well.
One of them's gonna be needed a little quicker than the other. The first one would be the taser systems,
I'm sorry.
the taser systems,
Okay.
I'm sorry. The existing tasers we have are an X26 model. The manufacturer has essentially stopped supplying and or replacing those. So they're end of life. These are not cheap devices, so when we replace, we have to look at getting 32 at the same time. And they gave us two different options. One of them is almost like a subscription where they called it the certified package. And their theory in putting that forward with a certified package is if you're expending a lot of cartridges, they're included, they'll replace them if they're used in duty use, so to speak. Part of the requirement for being certified with a taser is to fire off at least 2 cartridges per year in front of an instructor. You get certified. Those cartridges run $45 depending on where we are in the year each that are expended. We fire far more in qualification than we do in actual field use. I don't think we're a large enough agency with enough use of force incidents to justify getting what they're selling as a certified package. I would recommend going with a device-to-device replacement. And as we need cartridges, purchase cartridges. Of course, we're gonna plan just like we do with ammunition and qualifications every year. Plan on how many cartridges we need, budget it in, so that we have enough for field use, plus qualifications, and year to year, we should be okay. But this is coming, we have enough cartridges to get us through this year, this calendar year. We just did our qualifications. I think we have about 10 or 12 cartridges in stock right now for replacement if we need them. This is coming. This is one of those trains that's coming that we have to address, and these tasers are gonna have to be replaced, whether we like it or not. If you hold them up side by side, they look very identical. They have a different label on them. But the other manufacturer, we have to go with what they sell and what they have available. So this is something it's coming. We do have to address it. I think the least expensive version is to go with the basic package, replace our devices handle per handle, as they call it, and buy the cartridges as needed, aside from the qualifications. If we start burning a lot in the field, go ahead and use them. Yes, sir.
Right, thank you.
Go ahead.
Now these are, that would be part of your operational budget, wouldn't it? You know, for the cartridges?
We typically, for qualifications, we put qualifications in, so regular ammunition, firearm ammunition is usually budgeted for.
Right.
We write that in. The cartridges are as well. Where we're switching to a whole new model, it's a different story. We'd have to look at the use, how much of the current cartridges, because it's a different model, it's a different cartridge, they're not even compatible with each other. So you can't use the old system with the new one. You've got to transfer it completely. We'd have to get the exact pricing on those cartridges, and that's gonna go in the budget line that way. It would be no different. Ammunition fluctuates greatly depending on world events and what the availability is, and this is an ongoing thing that we chase, essentially.
So the existing ones, now I understand the cartridges, but you can't buy new ones. But what if the taser, if it breaks, then it's no longer usable, it won't be, they can't fix it?
No, and that's why we lease them rather than buy them, because if it breaks or they get function checked every day when the deputy comes on duty, turns it on, fires it, it does a self-check, it reports back, yes, it's working, let your battery charges, et cetera. If something fails on that, it's taken out of service, the instructor that handles this vendor sends it out for replacement, and they service those. They're
Okay,
under
they will
contract.
still service them now?
That's part of the contract, yes, for now,
Okay, but when does that end?
this year.
This year, okay, so if it's next year, one of the ones breaks, then it's in the
It's gone.
trash,
Yeah,
basically.
it's gone.
Okay, so do you intend to then continue using the one that you have, or is this gonna be, once that year thing comes out, throw away all the existing ones, even if they work, and get all new ones? Or is it gonna be as needed?
I don't know if I'd recommend doing that. And the reason would be you've got two different systems
Yeah.
at that point. We buy 32 of these. The full-time deputies have these assigned to them. However, we have a large portion of our staff is per diem. And,
You don't want it to be confused.
well, we have pool devices essentially, right? Just like the court security officers have pool weapons that they have access to. So you may not get the same taser every day. You may report to duty, you've got to work at the hospital to do detention with a inmate, you check out a taser. I don't like the idea of having two different models in there. And you're gonna have a problem with the holster, whether or not that's compatible, different sizes, different types. And just the familiarity with the officer having the same device in their hand, that's what they've trained on and that's what they're
And now
certified
you're
on.
giving them something different.
Right, and if you qualify them on this newer system or the older one, it doesn't matter. And that night they happen to pick up
The
a
other
different
one.
model because there's simply none of the other devices around, now you've got a problem because that officer's not necessarily certified on
That
that
makes
device.
sense. Thank you.
Attentive.
Yeah, I just had a real, quick question. You said that they're leased, right?
Yes,
Okay, so if they're leased, you have a contract, so I would assume that all of this stuff is in the why would there be a cost when, if we already have a contract, that they're just gonna replace them out with new ones? Why would we have to spend more money if we already have a contract for the 32 or whatever that you currently have?
so you're looking at a 5-year price down the bottom on the basic package? So,
98 or 100, whatever, $108,000?
should be 99.8.
Are we on taser?
That's after contingent.
It says with a contingency, and with the contingency, it's 108.
108,000.
98.
Yeah, well, 98,840 is what it says.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that just a 5-year? Is that the 5-year lease?
So the 5-year lease is 99,840.
Okay.
The two different packages they're talking about is whether or not they're gonna give a constant flow of cartridges or not. With the certified package, basically, if you expend a cartridge in the field, they're gonna automatically replace that. We don't expend that many cartridges in the field that I think that's remotely worth it for our size agency. We can expend them as we use them and replace them. Like I said, they're between $40 and $45 per unit if they're discharged. Certifications, we can't do anything about every year. The officers have to be certified, they have to fire 2 cartridges. So that has to be built into the cost. It's going to, if the officer's gonna be certified in it, they have to fire those cartridges. It's gonna incur a cost for all those officers.
Yeah, aren't we already paying for a contract, though, is what I'm saying? So isn't this just a continuation?
This,
Like, I don't
so that's
understand why
part of the
it's in
service
CIP,
contract.
is what I'm saying.
So you've got a service contract for the devices. If they break, they're replaced. If we purchase them, and it's electronic, the electronics have issues. If it broke, we're buying a new one. These typically run more expensive than a typical firearm, just due to the nature of the device. I wouldn't recommend buying them outright. They're plastic. They have issues, and I'm much more comfortable having a contract with the company that if they break, they're replaced, rather than us having to try to figure out how to pay for another taser that broke.
Don't we have that now?
We do, but it's coming to end of life. They're not gonna service those tasers anymore.
I get it. It's just, to me, it seems like this is just an automatic line item, not a capital improvement, because you already have a contract in place, you're already leasing, so if we're gonna get new equipment, that's great. It just, I don't see why it's in here is what I'm trying to get to, I guess.
I think it's in there because we pay for the entire 5 years up front. We don't lease it year by year. We pay for the whole 5 years up front.
Okay,
You're okay now, Kelly?
yeah, I'm good now.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Then you-
I could go a little further on that. You said that you paid for the whole 5 years at once. But in here, we're seeing everything bonded debt, bonded debt, bonded debt. Has anybody contacted your departments? Because a lot of items you've got here are 5 years, 7 year. And as far as I know, most bonds are 10 to 20 years. So has anybody contacted your department and said, hey, these should be operational items because they're not gonna last for the term of the bond? And when you bond, the life expectancy of what you're bonding for is supposed to last as long as a bond.
Right.
Or more. So has that ever been brought to you guys to say, hey, you're gonna start putting this stuff in your capital improve, and not capital improvements, but operational account, because, well, you're not supposed to bond for longer than the life of what you're buying? Can anybody answer that for me, or?
Yeah, we've sent this package to our bond counsel, and I think what they're looking at is the average life expectancy of the number of items that are in there. You'll notice some of them are 20-year items. So the average life would exceed the 10 years that we're looking to bond it for.
So just, Ray, to follow up, that's what you're saying is that you basically get a pool of capital projects, some of which in this case has an expected life of 5 years, some are gonna have an expected life of 20 years, and you lump them together and take out a bond for 10 years, that'll cover all of it?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, the logic in that, I guess. Further question?
That seems like, and 5 years, so that would be operating. Capital.
Anything else? Go ahead, Steve, with the next one. Are we good? Oh, further, go on. Go ahead, Steve.
All right, the next item, and again, this is planning down the road. We currently carry the 6-hour 320 as well as the 6-hour 360.
Wait. We got crosstalk showing up. Go ahead, Steve.
So currently our sidearms are a 6-hour 320 and a 6-hour 365. We are going to be, at the end of this CIP life cycle, running towards the end of the service life of those firearms. We're gonna be hitting the 10-year mark on those weapons. They typically, in most agencies, are gonna get about 10 years out of weapons. And then you're starting to adopt something else and look into other options. With that in mind, we started looking at viable options that we could look at and came up with 2 different options. Not to get too technical on firearms, we went to the vendor Block. They're a pretty staple company out there with 2 different thoughts in mind. One would be with the, how familiar you folks are with these, but the sights that are mounted on top. And whether or not we went with every weapon having that type of sight system or just stuck with iron sights.
You're talking
that
about red dots
optional.
on top.
Pardon me?
Talking about red dots when you say.
Yeah, red dots, and there's all different terms for it, and I'm not completely sold on it, whether or not that's the best way to go, and I think we're gonna have officers that have a preference not to have that type of sight system, but we wanted to get the prices for both. Typically with firearms, the ones you're trading in, they will give you a significant amount, which their estimate from Block on the typical, on the 1-to-1 on a regular, it's cut to mount that sight, but it doesn't have the sight on it. And that does make a difference. If you bought the weapon systems without that cut on the top of the slide, I believe Barrington just went through this trying to update their weapons, and it was significant. It was almost just shy of buying a new weapon to have that cut. It's expensive. I wouldn't recommend getting them non-cut, at least have them cut, have the plate. If in the future they say, hey, we want to go to these optical sites, great. it's a matter of getting it mounted and getting the officer trained and run forward. So we looked at Glock, they were middle of the road base workhorse of a type of weapon. They're looking at trading us 15,000 with our weapons and magazines traded into them, which brings the unit price down significantly if we went with that model. And the model we picked is it's a Glock 45, but it's not a 45 caliber, it's a model 45. So that design is a Glock 19 slide, which is a mid-size slide with a full-size grip.
Is it 9mm?
Yes, yep. So, yeah, when I say the Glock 45, I don't
Yeah.
want people, so that's
The size.
that. And we did get prices, like I said, with a cut, uncut, and the other issue that's involved is the hollow sun sights. If you look at the price of those, they're actually more expensive than the weapons, which is part of my hesitation. They're $822 per unit to put on those new optics. Great idea, but they're significantly more expensive.
That include holsters for each pistol as well? And
Well, you've got to add that too, because nothing's compatible from gun to gun, and we did have the price in here listed somewhere for the holsters.
I didn't see that. Would it be a different holster whether you have the red dot or the optic on it or not?
It is, and that's the problem. You've got to not only certify the officer with that weapon with the sight on it, they've got to have that holster system. Everything's got to be consistent for what they're carrying day to day. And as much as it's odd to have two different systems out there, one without sights, one with, ages of shooters come into play, their eyesight comes into play. Some people are really great at picking up that red dot and the technique you're supposed to use for it. Some people will have a really hard time doing it and are much better off with iron sights. So it's very shooter dependent, and I really don't want to force shooters one way or the other. If they're comfortable with one system, let's get them qualified on it. As long as it's the same model weapon, they're consistent with it and they can qualify. I'm open to that idea rather than pigeonholing people in.
So I understand you're gonna get to the ones that, they'll all come with iron sights, they'll be cut on the slide, so you can install an optic if you choose to.
Yes,
So if you're gonna do this for deputy, then you're gonna have to wait until they decide which one they want before you order the holster. I mean, you can always add on the red dot later, but if you've got a holster for one that doesn't have a red dot on it, putting the red dot on is probably not gonna fit in that holster.
it won't, and that's what I was saying. So the holster for a red dot is significantly bigger. It's got a big hump that comes out of the front to accommodate that sight. It makes a big difference.
But you'd have to know that in advance before
We
you
would.
order the holsters.
We would.
Yeah, that's.
It's gonna be a training issue and a qualification issue, and yeah. Like I said, this is something that it's in there because these weapons, you're gonna be, at the end of this cycle, you're gonna be looking at a 10-year-old weapon that the deputies are carrying, so better to plan ahead that we're gonna have to start planning for their replacement as we move forward.
Who's gonna give the buyback? Is Glock gonna take it?
Depends on the vendor, so if we swap SIG to SIG,
Yeah, the SIG will.
right, it depends on who,
But sometimes another manufacturer will take them too, so.
they will. Typically, if you're buying from Glock and you trade in the weapons you're carrying, they'll give you the best option because you're buying from a sole
That's
vendor.
right.
SIG worked out that way when we swapped from the older model we had to the 320. They took all our old weapons.
Okay.
So that's usually a big part of the deal, and whether or not you go with that vendor is
Yeah.
how much you're getting for the weapons you have.
Correct.
Historically, those weapons, let's face it, they're used every day. They're not somebody's gun that they've had in their safe. So they're worn, they're scratched. They're not something that somebody's gonna put into a used gun shop and get the same money that, a personal weapon would, because it's not as abused. The difference is it's on a large sale. As long as the weapon's functional, they're gonna give you the base price, the same for each weapon. No, that is certainly part of how we go on and look for these.
And Glock's like 90% right now in the country is what pretty much law enforcement is using, so I would have to say
They are.
80 to 90%.
They are, and we are in a public meeting, like I said, we do carry the SIG 320s. how up-to-date people are on that weapon specifically and some of the issues it's had.
Yeah, I
And
know.
Had a lot of issues.
that
It's
gives
had
me a lot
ton
of
issues.
caution.
Yeah,
And
it has a ton of issues.
there's, the concerning part for us, or at least on my end, when I started looking at this, is that weapon system, 320 is there's no safety on that.
Yeah.
It's got internal mechanisms. Our deputies doing transports back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Every time they go from one secure door to another door, that weapon's out, goes into a safe. Every time you do that, every time you do that rep, you're introducing the chance that something can go wrong. And I just want to be as safe as we can. Whether or not that plays out in the courts and the civil side with 6 hour, who knows?
Well, the student's still alive, the student's still going on,
Someone just won one.
yeah, so.
So someone was successful.
Oh,
And
that's right.
I think within the last year, 20 or 21 were filed in New Hampshire federally. So,
A lot of people with holy shoes.
yeah, they are what they are. And, where we are approaching our 10-year life on those weapons and the original issue, I think it's something that we should start looking to address.
You done? Within our-
Well, you partially answered my question about the 320, which is indeed the subject of property liability suits.
Yeah, I don't want to wind up the focus of one.
Those are all in federal court because gun manufacturers have immunity from civil liability here in New Hampshire, but I had a conversation with the lobbyist for 6 hours, by the way, it's a local company based in Newington, right down the road, so.
Absolutely.
Probably many people in Strafford County work there, but, you said, I guess there is a safety catch, which is an option, but not all the customers take advantage of it.
They do sell two different models, and the US Army did adopt that model.
Yeah.
And that was probably part of its adoption, is the fact that it has a manual safety. It does have internal safeties. They claim it has a drop safety and a firing pin block like most modern firearms do. However, the military version is that manual safety that you can toggle on and off. Ours do not have that. We have a straight 320.
Follow up, is that any particular reason why you made that decision?
I didn't make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
But when they first came out, there wasn't no.
Yeah, there wasn't any other option.
It really wasn't out there.
Yeah.
I think the military, and they listed it as a different model as well. So it's not, the military didn't buy a 320.
The safety is the trigger, is really what it comes down to.
It
Safety
is.
The trigger.
It is. But on that thought process, some folks are gonna know what a 1911 is, right? It's single action. It's carried typically with the hammer back and it's cocked or on safe. Not many people would imagine carrying that type of weapon system with the safety off. Because, okay, so that's, you're in a fairly similar circumstance with a 320. There's a little more play in that trigger, but not much. So, I think the military made a wise decision to get the one with the safety on it. However, they do sell a model without.
Okay, well, see, we'll have to go to college on this subject.
Sorry.
Okay, so further questions here? Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead,
That's it.
That's it?
That's all.
okay? And that's the total presentation, there's major, well, the enhancements of discussion we've had today. Are we good on the criminal justice?
No, we also have the House of Correction.
Okay.
Yeah. Maintenance mostly.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Brackett. I'm the superintendent of Strafford County Department of Corrections. I appreciate the time. Recognizing that we have another meeting after this, I'm going to go through and talk about the items that I'm looking to seek approval for. In total, it's $936,138 over the period of time for the capital improvement. The very first thing that I'm going to talk about is going to take away half of that cost, and that's the camera system. The camera system at the Department of Corrections was installed in 2003, prior to the 2004 opening. In August of 2004, that's when we opened. The system is coax. It's a coax system as opposed to a PoE or power over Ethernet. And it's more than 20 years old. Technology does not have a very long shelf life, as everybody knows here, and we've done all that we can to keep the system working, to keep it upgraded. But in that 20 years, there have been new requirements that we have had to adhere to be in compliance with federal standards. The easiest example that I can give you is the PREA Act, Prison Rape Elimination Act of 2013. We are required to have cameras in specific locations, and when we first designed the facility, those cameras were not in that location. So we have individual camera systems that we can go and we can access, but they're not all together on one system. The camera system that we have, as I mentioned, it's 20 years old. It's a coax video, so it's not very clear. With this camera upgrade, it would improve image quality. It improves the coverage inside our facility. We can increase the storage so that we can keep the data for a longer period of time. And again, it streamlines and puts all of the images onto one system. This is operating off of a quote that we got when we went out to bid. We wanted to find out what the cost was going to be. And we have as a contract employee, a gentleman by the name of Paul Simon, not a very talented musician, but he does, actually strike that, he is a talented musician, but that's not his area of expertise. He's an electronic security engineer, and he's the gentleman that designed the electronic security system inside our facility. He has vetted, and some of the things that Director Bellin talked about making sure that we're purchasing equipment that is built in such a manner that adheres to the requirements and regulations in the United States. He has signed off on the system. System's $558,943, and it is a system that we can install that checks all of our boxes, and it's also a system that our federal partners would be happy for us to install. I do have, Representative Potenza, to your point, I do have some new cameras that are in there, but those cameras are, I'm gonna say, dead-ended with a coax connection. There are some technology that we've used where we've utilized something called a balun, which is I take 4 coax cables and it goes into a converter, and then one data cable, RG49 cable, RJ49 cable, and then I have 4 coax that go off the end of that. So I have updated some of the cameras, but all of those cameras are designed to work with a coax system. And this new system, I suspect you've seen, is all power over Ethernet. So that's the first system that I'm asking to spend some money on. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have on that.
I'll ask the first question, and that is, this expenditure would be upfront if we go with this.
That's
It would be
correct.
in the first year,
That's correct.
day one, so to speak.
That's correct.
Okay, Representative Arrington first.
Yeah, so a couple of quick questions. I see that in the thing that was handed out was a quote from Minuteman Security.
Yes.
Now, you had, Mr. Simon design the system, and then did he design it with Minuteman Security equipment in mind? Or did he design it to a point and then was sent out and they responded to a bid?
We had a security company come in and take a look at the operation and give us an idea. Once that idea was put onto paper, Paul Simon took a look at it and said, yes, this makes sense. Then we went out to bid so that everybody would come in and they would put a bid in on the system that we were looking for. From that bid, he looked at all of the equipment to ensure that the equipment fit the standards and regulations that we need to make sure that our federal partners are happy.
So the bid that fit what we needed for the requirements, this was the best price one.
Yes, that's correct. That's absolutely correct.
And second one, it looks to me that this is gonna be a nightmare in transition, having 2 systems up and running like this with cameras all over. I mean, how is there an extra cost associated with, I mean, do you have to do something else? Just seems like that's gonna be a real
So the first thing that we need to do is we need to install the infrastructure that's gonna collect all the data, meaning it's where all the images come back. We'll have to put that stuff in first. And that has no impact on our operational process. And then what we're looking to do is we're looking at, none of it's gonna be wireless. We're not gonna have wireless cameras because there are some security concerns that come with that. As a result of having that information, we can then take the new cameras and install them and run the wires back so that we continue to have coverage the way that we want, and it only becomes enhanced as we install the new cameras. There are some cameras that are gonna replace existing locations, and so those will be able to be, there's gonna be some downtime. But the hope is, and the plan is that we're gonna install cameras so that we still have coverage. One of the things that I mentioned in our previous, I guess I'll say discussion, because there wasn't a meeting, because there wasn't a quorum, was that pan tilt zoom cameras, which are cameras that can pan, they can tilt, and they can zoom in, are awesome. If you need to inspect something, that's a great way to use it. The problem is that the way our system is set up, those pan tilt zoom cameras also cover doors, because that's its primary function, is to make sure we know who's walking through doors. So inevitably, if something happens in a location over here, there's not always a high likelihood that the camera's gonna be panned, tilt, and zoomed into that location. And so putting in two fixed cameras where you have optimum coverage without the impact of an individual that's manipulating the camera to investigate something, allows for you to have that coverage. And the reason why I bring that up is it has to do with the fact that when we install a camera, we will work with an installation company to say, let's install this one first. So when you take this camera offline, I still have coverage.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Representative Howell.
So again, these cameras basically are deterrent, and your goal is to keep incidents to zero.
Well, that's always my goal, regardless of the camera. I think it's important to know that the camera doesn't take place of an officer, and I think we all know that, but I'd like to say it publicly. It is a tool so that if something happens, we can go back after the fact and we can garner additional information to find out. And without getting into specifics, some of the video footage that we have collected has been an integral part of an investigation that gets conducted by our sheriff's department. And so what we're looking to do is we're looking to replace an antiquated system, and we're looking to enhance the ability that we can go back and then gather information in the event that we need to do so.
Thank you.
Good.
I'm good,
Okay.
he answered the question already, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. Moving on to the second item that I'd like to talk to you about, and we're gonna talk about dryers. So, as you know, the jail does laundry services, certainly for the jail. It also does it for Riverside Rest Home, Hope Memorial, Humane Society, as well as, Wentworth Douglas. We used to contract with Wentworth Douglas to turn a small profit during COVID. The systems that we have now were installed in 2006. So again, we're talking about an 18-year-old dryer system that I'd like to replace. Now, we have preventative maintenance contracts to work on these things, but they're getting to a point, and Doug, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we're getting to a point where these systems are no longer, they no longer have parts for them because they're getting old. And so the reason why there's such a high cost is because it's not just replacing the dryers, it's getting heavy equipment in to be able to remove them. The dryers that we're talking about are massive. They're industrial dryers, and it's not the big ones that you see at a commercial laundromat. They're huge. They're 14 feet long by 8 feet wide. They're just massive. And so when we had them installed, after we moved into the new facility, we had to use a heavy crane to be able to drop them in. And so some of the cost that you see there is not just a replacement, but it's also the installation that's required to do that. And so the systems that we had installed, we actually had to build a wall after the fact so that we would have access to areas, but we had enough space to be able to put them in prior to operation.
And all the auto mechanics in the room can relate to this discussion.
Sure.
You gotta take half the car apart in order to get to the part you wanna replace before you put everything back to top of it. My mechanic goes, give me that old Model T where you could service everything
Yeah.
with one wrench.
Yep.
Anyway, so go ahead.
Um,
Are there questions? Further questions?
That's kind of a generic question. Maybe this is more for Ray. Just refresh my memory here, Ray. Some of these projects are listed as bonded debt and others are like this one are listed as capital reserve.
We actually don't have a capital reserve account. I think that was just
But there's a number of checked capital reserve.
yeah, but I think it was just a misunderstanding with the people that filled out the document.
Okay,
We don't have a capital reserve account.
that's, I was wondering where it was.
Yeah, we don't have one.
Okay, well, that's why I don't know where it
I'm
is.
gonna go ahead and fall on the sword and say that's my fault.
Well, you're
I
the only
checked
one.
the wrong box.
There's a couple of other ones that are checked that way
Yeah.
as well, so, okay.
So, I'm sorry, I don't wanna move on to the next one unless.
Oh, no, you know I'm running this ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Item number 3 is an outside freezer. We currently purchase food in bulk, as I'm sure you know, and, anything that's frozen, we have to keep frozen until we use it. And those items at this time are kept over at Riverside Rest Home. When the building was built in 2004 and before that, there was an area that was designed specifically for this purpose. But through value engineering, it was determined that we didn't necessarily need to do that. And we've done for 20 years, we've stored all of our frozen storage over at Riverside Rest Home. One of the things that we're gonna talk about is food costs when we talk about second quarter expenditures. And if I had my own freezer, I would be able to purchase additional items in bulk and keep them over in a freezer at my place. So, in a freezer not at my place, in a freezer at the Department of Corrections. It would allow for an increase in storage for us to do that. And a lot of times, the storage items that we need to keep frozen are specialty items that I'm required by guidelines, by Bureau of Prison guidelines, to offer specialty meals to individuals. And they're costly. If I have to get a halal meal, if I have to get a kosher meal, those are things that I have to purchase, and I purchase them more so in bulk, because the more I purchase, then the less expensive it'll be per item. And so having this installed would allow for me to be able to do that. And the intent is that we spend a little bit of money now so that I can save money over a long period of time. The anticipated time of use for that is 20 years.
Questions?
All right, number 4 is the jail dishwasher. Again, it was installed at the beginning, at the beginning of the use of our building in 2004. And again, this one falls into the situation of we're having a hard time acquiring parts to be able to replace it in the event that something significantly breaks. Again, a credit to our planning and preventative maintenance, we've been able to utilize a dishwasher that is utilized from 4:30 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. And we've been able to utilize this, and that has survived it being moved out of the kitchen while we replace the floor. We've had to move it a few times, and it's still maintained a level of operation. But within the next 6 years, I think it would be prudent for me to plan to replace that, because if I don't plan to do that, then I'm gonna ask to come up with around $68,000 to replace the dishwasher.
How big is this dishwasher?
It's an industrial dishwasher, so it's a Hobart machine. It's one of those ones where you lift up one side and you slide the trays in. It has a cleaning system that operates for about 4.5 minutes. It has to operate at a specific temperature. We have to use a specific mix of chemicals, and then it has to be able to rinse in a process that allows for you to rinse, wash, rinse, and can be considered sanitary.
Yeah, you might be able to answer this, but the new ones you've looked at, are they claiming more efficiency than the ones that are 20 years old?
They are,
Can you give us an idea of what you're looking at?
I would not be telling you the truth if I told you exactly, but as it relates to the improvement of electrical use, it has a lower energy use over a period of time. it's not the same as what you would see on a dryer when it says, this is the amount of electricity that you're gonna spend in the year if you use it under its recommended use. But they do advertise as a more efficient, it'll use less water, all of that, all of those things. But to give you an exact specific, Representative Newton, I can't.
Anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
All right, the next is the bathrooms in the therapeutic community. The therapeutic community is a inpatient recovery program that we operate over at the facility. It's an abstinence-based program, and it is utilizing a space that it was originally designed for work release. It's separated from the rest of the population, and the reason why we're utilizing that space is because we don't operate work release outside of our facility anymore. The bathrooms were designed to be less violent, I guess. There's tiles in there as opposed to having metal showers or concrete showers. And it's been 20 years of use, and so we need to update those. We need to update the floor in there. We need to update the tile that's used inside the showers. And this capital improvement does exactly that. It's about $45,000 for us to do that. It's not an item that I need to have done this year or next year, but it's an item that I need to have done over the next 6 years because because of the sanitary conditions that could be created if we neglect it.
Is this a situation where the inmates, I'm sorry, I don't know what to call them, but.
Inmates, yeah.
Okay, inmates. Are they working away trying to convert these tiles into, weapons or whatever, or it's just wearing out?
It's wearing out over time, and
From
so.
normal use.
Yep, and so the population that's in there is largely concentrating on their recovery. They're not thinking in that criminal behavior the way in which you might find down in general population.
Mm-hmm.
So in general population, we put a high quality epoxy. It's a cement. It's a cement structure that's in there. Or over in Unit J. Originally, we wanted to put metal showers in everywhere, and so we did it up in Unit J, which is our barrack style unit. And then costs became exorbitant, and so we had to pivot from that, and then we went to an epoxy resin that we did over the past couple of years. The TC unit does not have that same exposure to inmates thinking in that way. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to. It just means that they have a different area of focus in the therapeutic community than they might have on general population. And so that's why I say, we don't leave tiles in there that are starting to flake off or anything like that. And we have gone in there and we've done repairs in there. But we're talking about, I'm talking about fixing it the right way over the next 6 years. That's what I'm proposing.
Questions? Okay.
All right, the last item that I'd like to talk to you about, and this is something that is out on the horizon, is a new transport vehicle. We currently have two vehicles assigned to the Department of Corrections. One is caged. It's a Dodge Charger, and the other one is a Dodge Durango. I would like to get a new transport vehicle that would be caged. And the reason why is because the Dodge Durango, the Dodge Charger is getting to a point where the electronics are starting to not work. So it is when changes to RSA 30B were implemented, where we had powers of arrest under very limited reasons, we were also authorized to have lights and sirens in our vehicle. So we installed those, and then since then, it started to malfunction. And so what I want to do is I want to plan ahead, and I want to be able to have a new vehicle, a sport utility vehicle, in which we would be able to conduct transports. Now, by and large, we don't do a lot of transportation. However, when we do transportation, we need to have a secure area to put them in. The Dodge Durango is largely utilized for administrative functions. If people are going to the academy, if they have to go to training, that's what we offer for people to be able to take for transportation. This would be something that we would utilize to be able to transport inmates from one place to another if we need to.
Okay.
Superintendent, just
Yes.
a quick question then. When we've discovered planned escapes,
Yes.
what's the mechanism, the most common mechanism for that planned escape?
It's during transport. Largely, it's the weakest, it's the weakest point. I can sit here and tell you in this public meeting with that whomever wants to watch this in perpetuity, that our building is secure. Our building is a secure operation. When they leave our building, it becomes a weakened point of security. And that's not to say that there's any fault on behalf of any of the agencies that we work with to transport outside of our building. But there's two doors that you have to get through to get out. Whereas on a car, you have one door that you have to get out. We do everything that we can to ensure that that individual doesn't have anything on them prior to transport. But there are certain limitations that I'm bound to, that I can't search everywhere. And so if somebody has something hidden on them or inside them, and they want to try to manipulate their handcuffs, when they get transported to, and it's not going to court, it's not going to another law enforcement area. It's if they go to a non-secure area, if they have a doctor's appointment, and that happens. If they have to go to the hospital, that's where those things happen. And so having a secure vehicle that is reliable is something that I'm trying to plan ahead for.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. The mileage and the year of the vehicles?
The mileage on the Dodge Charger, which is what I'm looking to change out, has about 40,000 miles, which is very low. And that just goes to show how much transportation of inmates we do. Our transportation is to take somebody to a recovery center, or is to take them to a bus station. That's the type of transportation that we do. If they're in our custody until they're out of our custody, and I don't want them to get out of our custody unless we make that decision to do so. The year of the Dodge Charger, I believe, is a 2011. But I'll have to check on that.
Useful life is about 5 years.
Pardon me?
Useful life. Well, make them last longer.
So for the jail, we put a useful life of 8 years. I think the useful life for a vehicle, depending on, how you feel about certain makes or models, could be more or less. But this vehicle that we would look to purchase, if we had authorization to do so, would be purchased through the state bid process. So we're going to look for a vehicle that is safe to operate in all seasons, but also is vetted to be the most inexpensive option to the county.
Okay. Yeah, Representative.
Yeah, again, looking ahead, and it's good that you do that. Has a capital expense account or fund been considered to put a little money away for the next 5 years or 6 years, so you could just buy it? Again, I don't like bonding for vehicles, only a fool takes a mortgage on their house to buy a car. And that's what you're asking here, is for us to bond to buy a car. So it just doesn't make any sense to me to go that route. When I think it's great that you're looking ahead, and also sometime a sit down would be good to say, okay, jail's 20 years old, what else do you see in the future that, we're gonna have to deal with because everything's 20 years old or more?
Sure.
And you would be the best person to do it, you're honest, and you seem to stay on top of stuff.
Well,
But again, why not set up a capital fund or something like that?
So in all honesty, I would defer really to the county administrator, only because I don't know. I know that all of the revenue that gets generated by the jail or anybody goes into a general fund, and I'm not entirely sure how I would be able to say, hey, could we allocate this to save for this exact purpose?
The delegation would have to do it, but
Yep.
the other part is when you can borrow at 3%. If I'm establishing a capital fund, it's coming out of your pocket. right?
Well, this
Because
is too,
I
with
understand that.
interest.
I understand that. So the question is, and it's an ultimate taxpayer question, right? Does the taxpayer want to set aside a certain amount of money every year and for future purchases, or is it more economical, particularly with the nursing home, where we're fully reimbursed for any purchase, interest included? It wouldn't make much sense to establish a capital fund for the nursing home, because like I said, we're totally reimbursed through our Medicaid reimbursement. So, I mean, is that something, I guess if the delegation wishes to explore that would be certainly something that could be discussed in the upcoming budget.
Well, capital reserve accounts are given to the trustees of the trust fund who can get the best interest rates out of them, what have you. And even if you did it for 3 years, that, say 90,000 would be 30,000 a year if you could tuck that away. And this money, you get money coming in because the unassigned fund balance moves around quite a bit.
Mhm.
So I would just ask that at some point in the near future, you consider it, because that money goes to the trustees, they watch it. And then when that money gets in for that particular reserve account what it's saved for, then it's a lot less of a hit when you do have to do it. And then you can say, okay, we'll do it again, because in 6 years or 4 years, we're gonna want another one. Or we're gonna need something else.
And if
I
we
just
did,
think it's time to start looking at stuff like that.
and if we did that, it would be something that would be approved by the delegation. So I just wanted you to know that it would go in that way.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment on that. I think if you look at the way the towns operate, that's the way they do it on things that they say, okay, we're gonna need a new police car in 5 years.
That's
So
right.
for 5 years, you put money into an account and then you pay it almost in cash, and then you start maybe doing it all over again. So you're constantly funding it rather than going on and taking out a bond issue, so.
And the other thing with the capital reserve account, I don't think you can rob it to do something else with it, because you gotta go through the trustees.
Well, you have to go through we have to go through the delegation.
Yeah, well, you still have trustees at the county.
No,
No,
You have no trustees.
no, there's no
Municipal
trustees.
Finance Act does not allow that.
None whatsoever.
We have in the past,
Delegation.
put capital items in the budget,
Yeah,
okay? We've done that in the past.
Well, we've done it this year.
Right. We put capital items in our budget, okay?
there's no trust accounts
No.
at the county, nothing.
Not like you're referring to like a municipality.
I just said trust accounts,
Summit.
period.
No, there's no trust, there's no trust.
And the Municipal Finance Act for county government requires us, any capital purchase, to include it as part of the budget. Okay?
You're right.
Yeah.
It has to be part of the budget
Has to be
because the
part of the
delegation has to approve it.
Right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. Now, we took out a what, $6.2 million bond, is that correct?
The number of
The
years.
band, well, the band.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, the current, yes.
Current, okay,
Yeah.
so you spent 2.2,
I think it's 1.9.
okay, 1.9, all right. So where's the rest of that money?
We turned it back in, so we saved the interest on it.
Okay, so you actually, so you still gotta pay the band.
Correct. Yeah, pay the
Which
band.
is what, that's 1.9 plus 0.267, I guess.
We have to pay, there's in the budget this year is the interest to pay the band. And then we either make a decision about combining the band with this, doing another band, till January. And, cause January tends to be the best interest rates.
Right.
According to our financial advisor. So what we would probably do is for whatever cash we need between now and January, presuming approval, we would then, roll everything together and do a bond to pay back what we owe.
Right, so technically you already have the approval for 6.2 million.
For the purpose of.
Yeah, for one purpose,
For one purpose.
we could agree to change that use and make it part of this new, bond.
Good. Decision of the delegation, sure.
I mean, that's,
Absolutely could. Yeah, you absolutely could, sir.
you know, the most important things that way we're,
Yeah, no, you absolutely can do that. But we can't do it without your.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's, so I think we wrestle with that pretty much. Now the rest of the CIP, had forum, subcommittee
We still have the
meeting,
maintenance
minutes.
one.
and all.
No, we still have the maintenance portion, Mr. Chairman.
On C and J, we're not done with that yet?
Okay, we still have a maintenance portion of
Never
the
mind.
House of Correction, so we'll turn it over to Doug Kane, our maintenance director.
Thank you. I don't know why he's writing.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Mr. Chairman, representatives and commissioners. My name is Douglas Kane. I'm the maintenance director for Strafford County. I think I've met each and every one of you. First, let me say thank you to the representatives who have reached out to put their eyeballs on some of the challenges that we have here at the facility with the deterioration of some of the buildings, water runoff issues, electrical issues and such. There's a lot here. There's a lot in this book, so I'll try to keep it brief and I will certainly entertain any questions that anybody has. And I just want to make sure everybody's filled in totally.
So here we're just talking about how
Courthouse.
criminal justice.
Yeah. Sorry. All right, so we are, where are we at here on this list? We are 4160, or is it criminal justice is?
All the way down.
All the way down, good, thank you. Okay, starting at the 6100. First issue we have, life safety electrical. The generator and the transfer switches at the jail, we have a transfer switch currently that does not function 100% of the time. It is a known problematic brand to the engineers from Du Bois and King who visited us from Vermont to put this plan together. They came in and saw what we had and they put together a 4-phase plan to fix the electrical issues that we have here on site. And speaking specifically to the jail, if you could bear with me here while I try to explain this. We have an old portion of the jail that has a very small generator, a 230 kilowatt generator, which is small for a facility like that. We have the new jail, which has a 750 kilowatt, which is large enough to power most of the county. That large generator was installed with a transfer switch, which is faulty. And at times, there is no transfer switch coming on, so we lose heat, we lose electricity. The entire facility goes into lockdown. They don't have the ability to open or close any doors without using a key. It's a real security problem. The engineers told us that we would need an arc flash study to determine the safety of us manually transferring this switch, because we're not talking about house voltage, we're talking about 460 volts. And if there is an arc flash, it's enough to kill somebody. So we're in a bad situation there, and we need to get that taken care of. If you look through the plan under Du Bois and King that's in the packets, they did it in 4 phases. They want to take those generators, the new one, and move it over here to the courthouse, because this courthouse currently is about 50% covered, and really it's not great coverage as far as generator backup and life safety requirements, which of course are changing all the time. We discussed earlier at the subcommittee meeting about regulations that we have, CMS, international building codes, life safety codes, local fire department codes. There's a lot of requirements, and they're changing all the time. And unfortunately, they're getting more and more expensive. Everything's getting more expensive for this. I think their plan is sound. My team has looked at it and we think it's probably the best fit for the county. We looked at purchasing all new equipment and we're looking probably about twice what their bid was for purchasing all new generators and programming everything the way it should be. So specifically for the courthouse, phase 3, I believe, of the the jail, phase 3 of the project is moving that large 750 to the courthouse here, putting a tank on it, and then having 2 natural gas powered generators. Briefly, the issue that we have is when we have an ice storm, we lose power here, and we lose power for days at a time. I'm on the phone with Eversource every hour saying, where are we? Where are we? And I understand that their resources are limited and they want to make the maximum impact while they're repairing power lines. Obviously, they don't care. Well, not that they don't care, but the jail is not as high a priority as, you know, a neighborhood or a hospital or something like that. That generator, when running at full blast, consumes about 70 gallons of fuel an hour. The mechanism that we have to refill, and we found this out the hard way, when we called for Hafner's to fill our diesel tanks, Hafner's was not able to fill their own trucks because their facility had lost electricity during the storm too. So it was a perfect storm, you know, for not being glib, but it was really, it tested our team. We have manual backups, we have tanks that we place in the back of our trucks, and our guys are running all night, transferring fuel from one tank to another. It's a real operation, and that goes for 3 days straight. Last time, the particular leg that dropped took out the laundry in the jail, so we had no laundry service or linen. Now it was on a weekend, and usually they have a little bit of a buffer there, but once we got into Tuesday morning and we still didn't have electricity, it was getting extremely hairy. As Superintendent Brackett said, the laundry over there also provides the linens for Riverside Rest Home, and that becomes an infection control issue. Those two portions there, I believe the totals are in the book for that phase of the plan. I think DuBois and King broke it down for us.
1,900,000.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant?
Is this the 1,900,000?
I believe so, sir.
Yeah, while you're looking, this is something that needs to be done immediately, as soon as.
Correct. Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for pointing that out. As you look down through this list, I don't have anything on here that is frivolous. This is all life safety stuff. This is all heat, air conditioning, sewer, building infrastructure. We don't have anything for like an employee lounge or anything like that. This is all stuff that we need to keep this thing going. My team and I believe that this is the minimum that we can do to keep these facilities open for the next 6 years, for the term of this plan.
But it could be keep it open next week, hypothetically, right?
Correct. Yeah, that transfer switch is on my mind right now. If we have a power outage, that transfer switch might not transfer, which would mean we have to go in there and take a chance and transfer it. So it's a serious issue. The other issues with the electrical is just some transformers that need to be replaced during this. It's all in their plan in there. And I think they have a pretty sound plan as far as moving the generators around and saving the county as much money as possible by reusing equipment that we can use that doesn't meet the life safety threshold, which means it needs to turn on within 5 seconds. Well, generator needs to come on within 5. If we take that equipment, move it over here, which we don't have life safety requirements over here because nobody's sleeping over here. Nobody's here 24 hours except for dispatch, and they're awake. So that's a pretty good plan for us. Any specific questions about that portion of the phase for the courthouse?
Yeah, how old are the generators over there now?
The 750 kilowatt is original to the new jail portion, so I want to say that's 2004. 2004, yeah.
And how many hours does that have on it?
I don't have that information in front of me.
Is there an hour meter on it?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, I have the same preventive maintenance done to all of the generators in the county, whether it's life safety or not. I just think that's good sense. It's an investment that the county has made and the taxpayers have made into the
When you
equipment.
do the maintenance, do you ever send the oil out to get it analyzed?
Yes, sir. We have oil analysis, we have fuel analysis, and we have coolant analysis. And it's actually topical because we just got our results back for our coolant analysis from one, and we're gonna have to do a flush and refill on that. And we're starting to find high sulfur in some of the diesel tanks. So we're bleeding that off, using it for the tractors, trying to get some of that old fuel out of there. And some of that fuel could be decades old from the size of that tank.
And how big is that tank?
On the 750 kilowatt, there's a 500 gallon belly tank. And if you do the math, at 70 gallons an hour, that's not a lot of time for a generator. So that's why.
So when the generator runs, it's running full bore?
Full bore, yes, sir. That stack is wide open. Yeah, I don't believe it's anywhere near its capacity. I think we're probably at maybe a third of its capacity while it's running, but we do have that overhead built in. It's a massive generator.
Yeah, because they, for what I understand, they show the usage of the fuel, whether it's at their capacity, like you just said, or half or 3/4 or full.
Yes.
It requires more, the bigger the load.
Correct, and that information is done annually during our 4-hour load bank test.
So what do you plan on doing with the generator that's at the courthouse now?
The generator that's at the courthouse now will most likely go out to bid, most likely be for sale. It's the original Riverside
That's only got
generator.
344 hours on it.
Sure, and it's
That's not
also
much for a cat.
40+ years old. There could be corrosion in there, internal corrosion that nobody knows, and if it blows a head gasket, it could, at least, yeah, that's the original generator for Riverside that's here at the courthouse. And working on vehicles, there's all sorts of pinholes and corrosion and things that can happen.
I also know sometimes older is better. with stuff like that.
I certainly think so.
You know,
Well,
you know, new compressors or what have you.
That was
Wish you didn't get rid of the old ones.
Sure.
That's getting-
Yeah, I think we all can agree, unfortunately, the folks who write the laws for our life safety, requirements don't agree. They don't see that. They would
So-
never allow me to purchase a 50
So
year
I'm
generator.
kind of ignorant of life safety. What happens if you ignore them?
If I ignore the service on the
If
generator,
you ignore life safety, what they require you to do, are they gonna come shut you down?
people could die, Representative.
But are they gonna come shut us down?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
They will.
Yes, I need to have these things done, and actually set the CMS, the Center for Medicaid Studies is, our services is actually adamant that we look at our extinguishers once every 30 days, not 31 days, 30 days. And I actually received a warning for that last year. I was ignorant to it. I'm new at this job. I've been here for 2 years, but I'm learning every day that the mountain of regulations really is.
Would you believe I had a car that had a glove box filled with warnings?
But it's a little different with CMS because a warning changes to a fine.
Does it?
Yes. Well, I guess we could,
Yeah, you could ask.
we could ask, Dee about perhaps, $150,000 in fines in Carroll County.
Yes, yes, we had a citation, staffing citation, and we got a bill from CMS in $138,000. So, yeah, it was serious. They don't fool around at all. So, and, it could have been higher, but we hadn't met what their requirements were in a very rapid way, but.
And how was that fine paid?
Out of the county.
Taxpayer.
Out of the
That's right.
taxpayers paid fine.
Was that, you have a fine account that you?
No, this isn't us that has the fine.
Carroll County.
Right.
I haven't had a
Oh, that's
fine.
Carroll County.
I haven't had a fine in 36 years, and I certainly don't intend on
Thank you
getting
for
one
that.
now.
Representative, to speak more to your question, I take this job very seriously, and when I'm given, the requirements by CMS, I stick to them. I don't cut corners. I feel that the residents over there deserve this, and I feel that, those rules that are in there, even though I may personally disagree with some of them and think they're ridiculous, they're there for a reason, and they're there for life safety. And electricians gripe about having an update code every year, and have to have an update class, and things like, bonding a RV to ground. Well, next year you don't bond RVs to ground. It's all by committee. I don't make the rules, but I'm certainly here to make sure that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not illogical.
Right.
Yeah, I had a question on the funding. It looks, looking at the book here, and it talks about a cost of, 2,090,000, including 10% inflation, which I think is just the jail portion of it. But then going further in, it talks about a more comprehensive project where there's multiple phases in it, and the total is 5 million there. So is this a single project with a single contract, or is it being broken up just for the line items required by the budget?
What I had to do, to get these numbers, to find out where we need to be, so I need to know what I need to ask for money. We had the firm of DuBois and King come in and do an assessment of the complete facility. That's the courthouse, Hyder, Riverside, and both the old and new jail. This was the best plan that they could come up with. It is certainly a plan. I think it's a great plan. My team thinks it's a great plan, and we looked at the other alternatives, and we're talking probably twice the money, purchasing all new equipment. It is,
I guess my
this is
question, what is it we're being asked to approve? Is it the 2,090,000, or is it the $5 million as a package?
This is a phase of 4 phases of the total plan. The total plan is the $5+ million. This portion, I believe, is the 2.9 that you have there.
Okay, and then the other portions are going to be in other parts of the
correct
budget?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, like
Yeah, I'll discuss
courthouse,
those when we get to that.
whatever, okay,
Sure.
But it is gonna be basically one project. Is it a singular contract gonna be sent?
That's what I hope. We'll take a look at the project.
Sense to do it that way.
If I put this project out to bid and it comes back at $15 million, I'm gonna have to start getting the forklifts and moving generators around. It's really important that this electrical stuff is taken care of, but it will get done, the best way possible and the least expensive way possible.
So we have 4 generators?
This facility has 1, Hyder has 1, Riverside has 3, the Elms House has 1, and the old and new jail have 2, so that brings us to 9, I believe.
9
9
total
total.
we're gonna have in the end.
We will have 10. The single generator, that's a 750 kilowatt over there, is gonna be replaced by 2 generators to power the new jail. Those will be 2 smaller size natural gas units. Yes, yeah. Yeah, we've researched and asked around, and natural gas seems to be the way to go.
Totally.
There's certainly strong arguments for diesel, but once you get into those 3, 4, 5 day outages, the favorability and diesel really starts to drop off.
Pipes and natural gas is the way to
Natural
go.
gas fills itself up, it just keeps coming in,
Correct.
and it's a lot cleaner. to fill it.
It's more efficient.
Sure, and we don't have to pay for fuel sampling like Representative Newton asked.
Why wouldn't you, go with natural gas for all the generators?
Cause you,
That's what we're planning, but this here, we have an existing generator that is diesel, the 750 is diesel. And the firms that we've spoken to, including our folks that do our PMs, said that they've never seen a good conversion from diesel to natural gas.
correct.
They said the natural
No,
gas.
I wouldn't do it to that generator.
Right,
I'd go smaller.
Right. But moving the generator and adding a tank is considerably less money than purchasing a generator that
So
size.
what do you need for the courthouse?
We need to take the 750 from the jail, move it over here and provide fuel storage
What's
to
it
it.
need for power though? That's what I'm asking.
I'm not following you, Representative.
What's that now?
Maintain diesel.
It's a-
What's that now?
Well, it's not enough.
Yeah, it's
Diesel
diesel.
now.
Yep, 750 kilowatt, 460
But
volts.
750 sounds like too much.
That's not what's here now. And not,
No,
not the
no,
quote.
but-
What is it, 140 or one?
It's a 160 and it's
160.
only running maybe a third of the courthouse.
A third?
The total electrical demand for this place, if we have all the air conditioners on the roof, now keep in mind, we also have an air handling project on the roof that now has larger units that are gonna be taking more electricity. They gave me a ballpark of somewhere around 400 kilowatts. If everything is on and everything is running, which is a lot of electricity.
So the 175 won't handle it then?
The 175 is not wired up right now to handle all of that. It's only running just basic emergency
That's
light
right,
to
that's
exit.
right.
Sure, we had a storm outage at 7:45 AM back in February. Court personnel from the state are on their way in. Everyone's ready to open the doors at 8, and I couldn't open the doors because I didn't have electricity in half the building. And to satisfy our tenants, to give them, what they pay for annually to rent the court spaces from us, I need to have something that.
So there'll be 2 generators here?
There would be a single generator here. That single 750 would run here.
750.
Yeah, and that would give us room for expansion if the sheriffs were to expand or if we don't.
Which is basically overkill.
Representative Kaczynski.
A couple of questions. Any engine we're talking about to start it, you're gonna turn it, it's gonna be a switch somewhere, it turns on and off. So you're talking about life safety, has to go on in 4 seconds.
Yes,
And maybe, what's it going on now, 7 seconds? or
9. Which
So,
does not mean, there's a difference between backup and life safety, Representative.
Yeah,
Backup is within 12 seconds, I believe, that qualifies for backup, and life safety is 5
Okay.
to 7.
I know they
We've asked.
require a lot of codes, but what
Sure,
I'm saying is, what about, maybe I don't understand this, can you not change the switch to turn that same engine on faster?
it's programming. It would be programming, absolutely. Some
So I mean, rather
generators,
than replacing a whole generator.
but you're also talking, you're also talking adding more heaters to it, having it tested more often. It's a whole nother barrier, a whole nother level to the life safety requirements for a generator than just a backup generator.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got a minimum of temperature that it's,
Sure.
can stay in, so.
Yeah, our team has looked at alternatives, we said how much to buy a new one for here, how much to buy a new one for there, and this is about the most cost-effective plan that we can find.
All right, I'm moving on.
Go ahead, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, any more questions on the generators? Okay. Sanitation, the sprinklers, we are mandated by the city and by the water department to have backflow prevention devices on our sprinkler systems. The old jail does not currently have one, and I got a quote from New England Backflow for 2 devices, one for the courthouse and one for here, so that's why you see the $15,000 amount, basically split it in half. And added a little bit of contingency in there for that, just in case the price increases. Any questions on that?
But that, you said it includes the courthouse as well?
The quote that I received from them was for 2 devices, one for the courthouse and one for here. So if you see the quote, it says 30,000 total or
Oh,
somewhere
okay,
thereabouts.
okay, you split it down.
Yeah, I just split it right down the middle. Okay, anything else for that? Okay, the third item, IB. The IB area is Jail Industries. They do piecemeal work, and they do it quickly and they do it efficiently, and they're working in an area that was really never to be designed, or was never designed to accommodate that. It has narrow doorways, and they're bringing pallet jacks through, and the doorways are getting destroyed. They're getting knocked right out of the bindings. We're calling in welders every once in a while to re-weld these things. We're sinking rebar in. We really need the doors widened and upgraded, and as you can imagine, security doors are not cheap. It is difficult to get a quote because they're not off-the-shelf units. They're all custom built. So of course, that would go out to bid for that area. Also, their loading dock, they have heavy pallets. Some of these pallets are 350, 400 pounds that they're moving product in and out with, depending on what they're working. And if you see in the pictures there, that loading dock has barely enough room for one person to turn around, let alone a load pallet jack. So there's a danger that folks are going to fall off the deck there. I'd like to get a longer steel extension there to give them some room that they need so they can put product there and not have to worry about the door being open, which is also a security risk. Somebody has to hold the door open while they turn those pallets around. They do the same thing for laundry every morning. It's pretty precarious on that dock. It's a very small dock. So that's part of the project there that's labeled IB. Any specific questions on that? Okay. Moving forward to the HOC parking lot, that's pretty self-explanatory. I have a diagram, an overhead view in your packets there that shows you the areas that need to be repaved. KC Paving was gracious enough to come out and give us a quote. All these vendors that have given us quotes understand that these jobs are going out to bid. So it was really out of their own time and kindness and their willingness to help that they gave us these numbers and figure out where we're going to be at. You can see the picture in there for KC and the areas that need to be repaved. We have a lot of issues. We have sinkholes. We have catch basins that are washing out. We've made some modifications to our snow plowing routines to help save it. And that's what we're going to need going forward. That is probably a year or two out. You folks approved us getting some new equipment last year, which was very helpful. We got a crack sealer and we got a striper. So now we can seal cracks, we can stripe, we don't have to wait, we don't have to schedule. Years previous, we tried to schedule parking lot striping and it rained for 4 weekends in a row. So it was really impossible. We have our own crew to do it. That was a tremendous help. So I'm interested in preserving that. It's a lot of traffic up there. We have the daycare, we have transitional housing, we have the folks going in and out of the jail. All the folks who are in the Alms House, Southeastern Services, it's a lot of traffic going in and out, a lot of wear. Any questions on the repaving? Okay, HOC fire panel. I have a little description in there, a little story in there. We work with Hank Stewart. He's a salesman from Minuteman. He was the salesman and engineer for our fire panel at Riverside, the replacement that we had a few years ago. He has been working with Dover Fire and they had a change of their inspectors and he is waiting back to hear on exactly what is required inside that building because there are, of course, new strobes, new sounds. They're moving the new fire code requirements want pull stations out near the exits, not towards the inside of the building. There's a lot to work around there. So I just asked for a ballpark. I said, how much do you think it would cost to replace this fire panel? And that was the ballpark number that he gave me. Again, the job would go out to bid. I don't think he's wildly off. Our panel at Riverside was about $100,000 and Riverside is extremely complicated. It's 3 old buildings. It's a maze in there.
Is this would be something that is going to be mandatory under the 218 code?
Yeah. And currently, the system that we have is the original system, and it has had numerous, I'm sure, over the years, lightning strikes, power surges, power failures, brownouts. Right now, the software is so crunchy, for lack of a better description. When they go into test, they do tests on the fire panel quarterly. So they'll go in and pick 25% of the devices.
Did you say this is the Dover Fire Department doing this test?
This is RB Allen, our
you hire someone?
Correct, yes. Yep. They come in and do a quarter of the devices. There's about 600 devices over there. If you count the smoke detectors, heat detectors, horns and strobes, all the devices throughout the building. Normally, what a test would do is they would go through and place a cover over them, smoke it, set it off, clean it, put it back. They can only do 2 or 3 at a time now, and they have to reset the panel. If they do more than that, then the fire panel goes down, They have to reload it from a laptop with the software. It's a memory issue. The stuff is obsolete, it's 20 years old. It doesn't meet any of the code. It's the same issue we have here in the courthouse with that piece there. So that is really a rough estimate there of how much it'll cost to replace that. Like all these other jobs, that'll go out to bid.
But this is all stuff that needs to be done immediately, right?
Correct, yeah, again, we gave it these the highest priority, these are the things that are essential, these are the things that keep us up at night. If any folks saw the list, previous to the subcommittee meeting, it was the roughest of the rough drafts. I consolidated a lot of the jobs, we brought a lot of the jobs in-house because we have skilled technicians on our crew that can handle this stuff, they can do painting, they can do scraping. We can do small parking lot repairs and things like that, so we probably saved about $600,000 off of total project list, just bringing the stuff in-house, using building repair budgets and using materials we already have. We'll be able to do that. Any questions on the fire panel? Smokestack decommissioning, you can see in the pictures are also self-explanatory in this. That smokestack is well within the range of children in motion daycare and the IT department and community corrections, and probably give or take about 100 to 150 people every single day. We looked at bringing an engineer in to see if it was salvageable, and the engineer's quote was about $20,000 to do a full engineering study. So I started looking at demolition. I didn't think it was worth it. It's not used anymore. It burned number 3 diesel for years. I think it was decommissioned in 84, I believe, maybe 1984, somewhere around there. It hasn't been used since then, but the brick is deteriorating. You can see those cracks. It's starting to swell. That would be day one. If we get approval to get that taken down, I would want that bid out tomorrow. Really need to get that taken care of. I've checked with the other departments. Nobody's using it for antennas or anything like that. So we can get that taken care of quickly, hopefully. We get, as you can see, we get exact same quotes from 2 different companies in there. Any questions on the smokestack decommissioning? Okay, Alms boiler replacement and chemical treatment. The Alms house is a U shape, 2 wings. Each wing has its own boiler, and we have radiant heat through radiators throughout the building. The boilers that we have right now, one has a cracked section and is leaking, and the stop leak is not working anymore. I've crutched it the best I can. I knew they were expensive, and this is another area where, looking forward, we're going to make a small investment in a chemical treatment for this, which is going to save us big dividends in the future. The chemical treatment is already shown at the jail to slow down the corrosion of stuff that we would be changing out pretty frequently. And some of the mixing valves and some of the shower areas have maybe a 1-year lifespan. Since the chemical treatment, we're seeing these things are staying free. They're able to be adjusted, and everyone's happy on the closed heating system.
Is it due to the water quality coming in, or is it just?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's a lot of chemicals in there. We have, I'm paraphrasing, we have high conductivity, we have high dissolved solids, and we have low pH, I believe, or maybe high pH. I apologize.
Low would be.
Probably low. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's.
Not which are any good for keeping down.
No, the combination's bad, but the test that I was watching very closely, we had them double the testing to a month. They were supposed to do it every 2 months just to watch the progression of the quality in the closed loop heating system. We saw a rise as the stuff came loose from the pipes and the sediment started coming out, but then after that, it leveled off.
Cleaned out.
Yeah, we're on a treatment program right now where it's about $1,200 a year to have them come out and test it and do the chemicals, but when we're looking at one mixing valve being $4,500, that's money well spent as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, not including the cost of putting it in.
Sure, yeah, so I'd like to get that in on the ground level when we get these boilers replaced.
What's the size of the boilers?
I don't have the BTU offhand. I believe the actual boiler model and size are in the literature that you have there. It is a 5-section for HP Smith. Again, I got 2 quotes on these, one from Hart and one from Sassy. Apologize, Representative, I should know this. I don't see a rating for BTU, sir. The 5-section HB Smith section water boiler was what was recommended by J&S. And I believe a similar unit was recommended by Hart Plumbing. They came in somewhere around the same price on both of them for installation. And these are high efficiency units as well. We don't have high efficiency units in there right now. I think it will be the first place in the county where we'd have high efficiency units put in.
Those are gas?
Yes, sir.
Were they converted gas?
No, sir. No, these are natural gas boilers right out of the gate. The one that's in there now, I believe one is 14 years old and the other one is about 17 years old. But yeah, it's a big chunk. And again, like you were speaking earlier, we would normally put that on a capital thing, but we're at a point right now where that one boiler is ready to go. And I bet on it lasting and it didn't last. So that's on me. That's moved the timetable up considerably. I can get you the exact information to the delegation after the meeting. I have a chance to look it up. Any questions on the boilers? Moving on to the last item here. So this is a common theme on the county is water intrusion. As we see water running off buildings, the ground around the building gets depressed and which takes all the drainage away. All the water runs towards the building. You can see in those pictures, that's the daycare. That is damage to the outside of the building from rainwater. Gutters that have deteriorated, old aluminum gutters, the fasteners have come loose. We've crushed a lot of this, we've repaired a lot of this, but it's time to have some modern stuff there that can get the water off the roof and away from the building. We need to do it with the almshouse, we need to do it with children in motion daycare. Most of our outbuildings don't have this stuff provisioned in there. It's slowly deteriorating in the buildings.
And question, Mr. Chairman, the question.
Yes, sir.
In your opinion, has the county complex been a little neglected in keeping ahead of the sill and the sloping to make the water go away from the buildings? Is there part of your maintenance program where every year you say, hey, we gotta really get to this area because the water's going the wrong way?
That's an interesting question. I've been at this job for 2 years. I have seen the paperwork and reviewed the budgets for previous years to get some sort of sense of what was happening. There were some very lean years here. The maintenance budget was $25,000, I think, one year when I look back. $25,000 wouldn't get us to a quarter right now with Riverside, with the type of stuff that fails and the type of things that we need to keep addressing and fixing, handrails coming loose and the buildings are old. And again, they're being used. These things are being used. They're being used hard. There's a lot of hardworking folks at Riverside. So steam carts are getting bumped into walls and things like that. It's they're doing the best they can with the room that they have in the facility. In my opinion, the former director did the best that he could with the budget that he had. And not through any fault of his, but the crew that they had at that time wasn't as skilled as the crew that we have now. We have a full-time licensed electrician on staff. We have plumbers, we have carpenters, we have painters, we have folks with a lot of experience and they really enjoy doing it and they're good fits for these jobs. You'll see in there, one of the almshouse things was a floor. That floor had about an 8-degree slope to it, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're driving up a mountain, it's about an 8-degree slope. He went in there, did all the carpentry underneath, shimmed every single board. Now the folks in the kitchen in Southeastern have a flat surface to walk on. They don't have to watch the meatball roll off the table, which literally happened. It was bad. So keep in mind, it's 140-year-old building right now. And it's been maintained pretty well along the years. We're starting to lose some of the pointing along the masonry. You see that in the pictures. That's coming out in a lot of spots. I really need to get this stuff taken care of so it'll be there for another 130 or so years. Anything else?
That was good, right, Doug?
I believe so. Thank you.
Now we've got. That handles the subcommittee. And the other subcommittees all have forms and all have recommendations. And, the person was Riverside. You have recommendation, Madam Chair?
We recommend that we vote on with the commissioner's recommendations. There were a lot of questions and concerns that were asked during our meeting, and all of them were answered very well, very completely. People still had some questions. They felt might be better addressed with the delegation as a whole. So the vote was unanimous to move our portion of the budget forward.
Thank you. Questions from the Executive Committee?
Yeah, I'd like to know more about the sewer problem that you're having at Riverside Restaurant. And I heard that they were gonna get down to a 2-inch pipe.
Would you like me to address that during the Riverside portion?
I think we should answer it right now.
Okay, sure. The issues that we're having with the drain pipes at Riverside came to light last year. We had a pipe collapse, and this particular pipe services Unit 1 and Unit 2, so about 80 residents or so. It also takes some of the drainage from the laundry area and from the washing machine area. We were made aware when we started seeing backups coming through the sinks. And once we started digging down and snaking, what the plumber didn't realize is when he sent the snake out, it went out the broken portion of pipe and into the sand. So there was nothing there for pipes. We did the most expedient thing. We called lining companies. Lining companies were looking at a month. I can't have no sewer for a month. So we got jackhammers and we got pickaxes and we got to work. The crew was amazing. They got down about 6 feet in probably 5 hours. They chiseled through about 1.5 feet of concrete to get down to the sandy soil, and then they shoveled it out by hand all the way down to the pipe. You can see in the pictures in the packet, that is the condition of the pipe. So we started thinking about, okay, we're gonna have to have this place lined. In the meantime, there was a discussion about a new home, which made a huge impact as far as me making a decision on what do we need to do for this sewer. That I didn't think it was prudent to line building that we were going to be handing over to the next folks to take care of. When you look at the condition of those pipes, it's not a stretch to imagine that that's the rest of the facility. And the camera inspection that we had, the folks at Wind River were so gracious. They only charged us $950 to scope that entire building, which is unheard of. It's usually $100-something a foot just to send a camera down there. So they really did us a great service. I would say most of the pipes are in that sort of condition. There's large sections missing. Thankfully, we have clay soil around here. So the clay really keeps everything together. There's no washouts or anything like that.
Yeah, Schedule 40?
It's whatever was used at the time. I'm assuming it's been my experience, and it's only my opinion, that at the time it was built cheaply, and it was built with materials that were inexpensive, and it was built as a place to house folks that were poor. It wasn't, they weren't using the best of materials back then. Also, you think about the type of stuff that goes down the drain, chemical cleaners, detergents, things like that. The dishwasher replacements, in my opinion, that the jail is asking for and the Riverside are asking for are strictly from hot water and detergents, and then the type of water that we have. Anything that's plain steel immediately evaporates from there. The cast iron pipes for the spray nozzles on the inside, we're always taking those and replacing them and making new pipes for them. We have broken spot welds. They have all sorts of damage from that. So I imagine that stuff is heading down into there and rotting that pipe out as well.
So how many feet of pipe is bad? Do we know that?
Yeah, so we measured it and we looked at, we don't have original as-built plumbing plans. We only have the experience of folks who have been in maintenance for 30 years and know the system and know where the cleanouts are at. They estimated, Wind River estimated about 1,250 feet total that would need to be done, which will get us down to our grinder at the bottom of the hill. Have you seen the shed out there? That's our grinder. That's where the city water responsibility takes over. And that'll get us down to there. It's another imminent problem. You know, it could happen.
So what should that be, 6 inch?
The original pipes are, well, there's twos coming out of the bathrooms for the residents. I believe it's a 2-inch pipe. Those go into 4s, and then there's some other 6s in a couple areas. But again, these buildings were built at different times.
That's right.
You know, the top of the hill was, I mean, there's probably clay pipes or wood pipes at the almshouse that are still being utilized. Yeah, it's again, it wasn't on anybody's radar until that pipe collapsed. It's just not something you look at. If the toilet flushes, nobody looks. So
That's right.
here it is, yeah. And again, it's a 50-year-old pipe, acidic soil, I'm not exactly sure, but it's in pretty sorry condition. So yeah, that would be a high priority for us to get that taken care of.
Can we get outside the building is it under the building?
Under the building, sir.
So you
So we have, let me rephrase that. The unit 2, which is the second story, those pipes are accessible from the ceiling of unit 1, so that's not a problem. If we need to replace pipes, we'll replace pipes. But those pipes also aren't submerged underground, so we're not seeing the type of corrosion that we're seeing, the attack from the outside that you see when pipes are submerged, as evidenced in those photographs there. So we said $12.50 at their estimated at their estimated price to give us a worst case scenario. If they come in with a third of the, 300 feet of lining after they scope the place out, or after they come up with a repair plan, whoever wins the bid gets the repair plan. Then we could be coming in at a third of that.
Yeah, but lining is, you're going down a 2-inch, for what, 80 residents? That's.
Yes, 80 senior residents who may have a movement once every 2 days.
Yeah.
Not to be frank, that's the reality of it. It's not a like at your house with teenagers or my house with teenagers, which is constant.
Do you have a lot of problems with people flushing things that shouldn't be down there?
Yes, we do. Yes,
Because
absolutely. Yeah.
If you can't get to the grinder, you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, I cleared a clog in the hairdresser's salon earlier this week that was baby wipes. Someone in the facility has baby wipes. Now you educate and you tell staff knows, but a lot of folks don't know. So their family brings in baby wipes for them and then they end up in the drain. It's scary stuff. It's really scary stuff. It was a very small amount of wipes that clogged a good portion of C building. And our guys are experienced. They know to go slow. A lot of this stuff that has been moved around in the C building is now PVC pipe. We're talking getting clogs at the verticals now with the cast iron stuff. Yeah,
So did you get a price on replacing the pipe, the 1,250 feet?
No, sir. No, just lining, but again, we're not planning on doing the stuff that's in the ceiling. If we have damage, we can see it because it leaks. It leaks and then it drips on the ceiling tile. We go in there, our plumber can go in and cut that section of pipe out and replace it.
Is that clay?
No, sir, that's Schedule 40, I believe.
I'm sorry?
Schedule 40, I believe. It's cast iron pipe. Yeah. Yeah, and that's in pretty sound shape, the stuff that's up in the ceiling. We don't usually have too many problems, the occasional moisture problems just from temperature changes and things like that.
But there's a problem, you do it immediately, not like you're on the ground.
Immediately,
right?
yeah. And when I walk through the facility, I'm always looking up, always. Serious stuff. Well, because it could drip on food, it could drip on anything. So we take care of that stuff right away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so, then we have a recommendation of the Riverside Restaurant Committee to approve the commissioner's proposal with regards to the application of that particular subcommittee. We had then, Representative Morgan's, subcommittee met, general subcommittee. What is your review?
Well, we also voted to recommend the commissioner, we approved the commissioner's recommendations, although it was frankly not a unanimous vote. It was 5-2. One of them was the member Cecilia Rich, who recently resigned, but who's now living in the Riverside Rest Home we were just talking about. And there were maybe 2 parts. We had the registry of deeds. So registered Barabay is has a long-term project. And she may want to tell us about it.
Good afternoon. So just as an overview, we have 145 books that need to be, in my opinion, preserved and stored. It's not only my opinion, the New Hampshire RSA 478-1 mandates that at county expense, the books that are in disrepair be repaired and restored. So the way that we've been doing that is we've been doing it every year. About $30,000 a year we set aside in our budget to do that. When I first started about 10 years ago, we could do about 10 books now. Now we can do maybe 6 to 7 books. And then we have a 145 books that need to be preserved and stored. So the way that we've been doing that is we've been doing it every year. About $30,000 a year we set aside in our budget to do that. When I first started about 10 years ago, we could do about 10 books now we can do maybe 6 to 7 books. those books are historical, they are, all handwritten. They're ones that, people still come in and wanna look at and take copies of. We do have them scanned into the computer, and I know one of the questions in the subcommittee was, well, if it's scanned, why do we need to have them repaired, the books? Well, when they were scanned, there's still tape on them and they're still in disrepair, so you're just getting on the scan image what we have, you know, in the book itself. So that's one of the reasons as well, and it is mandated by statute that they need a county expense to be repaired and restored and preserved. Right now, we don't do any more books, you know, we don't create them. The books go back right now, you know, we have books back to 1771. The way that I would do them, that this started long before I was here, but is that I started doing, you know, the worst books kind of first, you know, because we want to get those books protected. Well, right now, because it's gotten so expensive, I try to do a mix of the worst books and maybe throw in one that's not so bad within that, you know, the numbers that we have to do. So I'm proposing that be done under this project. It is less expensive because it's in bulk. I've been told that it would be approximately 140,000. Am I saying that right? Maybe I'm saying 140, maybe it is 148. I don't have my glasses, so let's see. But with those books, then they would come out to a little bit above $3,000 if you did them all now, in bulk. And of course, it would have to go out for bid. Co-File was good enough to come in and, you know, do it. Obviously, it was to their advantage. So, I mean, they were good to come in, but we've been their clients for a long time. And to give us this estimate, they also said in a letter after that was put forth in the subcommittee that they gave that number, but they think they can also come in below another 5 to 10%. But obviously it's lost quite a bit. But they've been the ones consistently that have, you know, come in the least expensive. So I know other counties have had these projects going on. I think Carroll County, not that it's relevant, I guess in some ways it's relevant, because you can see that other counties find that it's important. Carroll County just did a $6 million over 10 years, 600,000 a year. I know that Rockingham has done almost $1 million, and so has Grafton. And you know, the issue we have is that those pages are still acidic, and the longer we wait, the more they're going to deteriorate. And then the price, if we're gonna restore and repair them, we're all just gonna keep going up. So, may I answer any questions?
So what was the cost?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I seen the cost of 480,000.
I'm sorry, did I say, I'm sorry, I think I said that. I apologize, I misspoke. I'm getting,
Yeah, it's almost.
480, I think it's 289 that we have on there. 269, yeah. I apologize, did I say 100?
Yeah, 100.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's a big difference, yeah. So, but you have all those numbers before you.
And the timing, you're saying that should be done now? I mean, you know, people are hurting. I mean, the economy is not that great. And,
I
you know,
appreciate
that's something that's, you know, you're doing some every year, which, you know, so how many do you have, do you think?
145.
145 golf volumes.
145 volumes left to do.
Oh, it's something to think about.
So some of what you're saying, you're recommending that we do the 145 as soon as possible rather than waiting 24 years if we kept up.
Right, if we keep doing the rate we're going at now, we're looking at maybe 24, 20 to 24 years to get them all done, but it's also dependent on the cost each year, you know. And once they're done, you know, we won't have that in our budget every year, the 30,000 that we're putting aside for it either, you know, so that would go away hopefully, because I don't see how we would need that, so. And I do have enough storage to put those books in, and if I don't, we do have enough money in the equipment fund to buy, we just need maybe one more shelving unit for that. It is a decision that has to be made, and we are mandated to do that, but again, that's whether or not to do it now or later, I recommend it be done now because I think in the long run, it's more economical, but decision.
There's a last sentence of our report, there was some discussion, and frankly, even though I'm the chair, I didn't quite follow how, if the inflation rate is going up, it seems to me that's better to do it now before the cost becomes inflated, and I understand there's not.
My daughter's the finance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not, in the end, it's something you have to.
I mean, I think, personally, my opinion is it's almost lost, like.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to be, I'm not trying to be glib about it, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that's something that, I know there was some questions about that.
And I think we got to see the books, and I guess there are a couple of them, we were only very impressed with the results, well, even the old books are beautiful, but they're even more beautiful after.
Well, I have a copy, I have an old copy up there now waiting on the table if everyone wants to look at it, and I have the restored one as well. I mean, part of the issue that we have is that there's tape on some of those pages, and once it's restored, these are all original documents, all the history of our county, our land records. Once those are restored, that tape is lifted up, and it's such a huge difference between, and I don't think I need to convince anyone of that. I think it's just a decision whether or not we do it now, or if it's drawn out the way it's been. So that's. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Southworth, your subcommittee met.
We skipped half a word.
What's that?
We haven't done the J&A maintenance department, which duplicates a lot of what was going on in other portions of the county complex. A lot of the same issues. I guess I can leave it at that. The one other funny little thing was the flagpoles. So we have 70-foot high flagpoles that fly Old Glory and the Hampshire state flag. And there was some discussion of using different Indians or making the flagpole shorter, but I think majority of the committee felt, we should keep the 70-foot flagpoles and spend what it takes to replace them if that's what needs to be done.
Okay, Doug, you want to?
Yes, the flagpoles at the front of this building, roughly 70 feet in elevation. You can see in the pictures in the packets, there's stress fractures and they're aluminum work hardening at some of the bend points. They're original flagpoles that were put in when the facility was built, and it's time for them to be replaced. I don't know how much longer they have looking at that sort of damage. We're looking at an in-kind replacement, aluminum for aluminum. I know there's other technologies out there. I'm not convinced that anything is going to give us the performance and the lifespan that an aluminum flagpole is going to give us. I've heard carbon fiber and fiberglass and other things, but we also live in an environment where we're going over 100 degrees and we're going 20 below zero sometimes.
Yeah.
Those things need to be there and they need to be strong. As far as the height, lowering them, yes, that is an option. What I've noticed is if you're coming in from County Farm Crossroad, you can't see the flags if they're any lower. I don't know if anybody takes that into consideration. But again, we're talking 10, 15 feet shorter. We're not going to save that much money. It's, a flagpole is a flagpole. I don't think it goes, I don't think it's linear percentage of the money saved. And that's a short.
And with the building, basically, I think a lot of that duplicated what's going on at the rest home, and the jail, but I guess you wanted to covered a lot of that in a lot of detail, but you wanted to probably tell us a little bit more about how it supplies to the courthouse.
Yes, sir. Sounds like it to me. Okay, at our courthouse, very quickly, we have two sewage pumps here. Things are getting introduced to them. Materials and sanitary napkins are changing and they're very abrasive. Our pumps are worn out and they're no longer pumping. We'd like to replace them with a cutter grinder style, a macerator, if you will, that cuts the items up and then pumps them out of here. Much heavier duty unit, has a warranty on it. And in the interest of saving money, that's something that our crew can do by itself. We can swap that out. Don't really need to go out to bid for that one. Just for the motors themselves, obviously, those go out to bid. We have, any questions on that? There's one right now. It's actually.
Air handling unit, no, that.
If you can hear it, that's not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to hear it. Yeah, there's severe wear in there. So, sorry, that's really distracting. Sanitation, sprinklers are old jail, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong spot here. I apologize. Life safety main panel. So we have another phase of the project that Dubois and King has outlined. we have a main electrical panel in this facility that is obsolete and the breakers are no longer available. We've discovered with the air handling project on the roof that when these folks need to turn a section of the building off, sometimes the breakers do not come back, and they've hunted high and low for breakers for replacements. We've found used equipment everywhere, but I am not allowed by law to put used equipment in this building. And it's probably a bad idea anyway. So we're looking at a replacement of the main panel. We're looking at a rewiring to make sure everything in here is covered under backup. And we will have a facility that's able to be open when it's supposed to be open for the state courts to function the way that they're supposed to. Now, the details are in your packet there. I believe it's phase 2 under the Du Bois King plan. Any questions specific to that? This facility? Okay. Moving on to life safety fire. Again, same situation as at the courthouse. Hank was working with Dover Fire and we had a change of the guard over there. And then we didn't get to revisit it. So that would be obviously something that goes out for bid when it is time to do it. But we have an original fire panel down here. I brought 2 representatives down with me to see that and discuss the problems that we have here with the fire panel. There's not the coverage that we need here in this building. Some areas you can't hear a siren, some areas you can't see a strobe. They flash too fast, they trigger seizures. There's a lot of issues. It's a 50-year-old fire panel. It's performed flawlessly, it's been maintained flawlessly. But moving forward, we really need to get some safety into some of these rooms in here. If there ever is an emergency or some sort of fire where we need to do an evacuation. And that's all.
On the board, Mr. Chairman, this was all heard by the committee, the subcommittee, and they could make a recommendation, and if there's more, the committee, the delegation wants to hear them possibly bring it up at the meeting.
Yeah, and he's already stated that the subcommittee voted 5-2.
So we could just say, do we need to go through it all again like we did this criminal justice because there was no quorum?
I understand the difference and the question was raised, so he addressed it, but the recommendation of Representative Horgan's subcommittee was 5-2 in favor of adopting the commissioner's resolution, original recommendation. So then we can go to, my intention is to start feeding everybody at 6:30, but we have to have the commission, the executive committee's recommendation by 7 o'clock. Anyway, so let's proceed to.
Yeah, I've been ready.
Yeah.
So we really looked at everything, but, we didn't discuss every detail because it was done on the other subcommittees. Really, our job was to look at how the items were funded. And, of course, one of the questions was, should all the things be bonded or are there items that should be in the regular budget? So, we had that discussion. I would say the biggest part of the discussion was on the contingency. And it right now is at 10%. And then, it could be 0%. Is there an area in the middle? So we really talked a lot about different approaches that way as far as the contingency. And if it was 0, then we might have to come back for some more money in 4 years or something. So it was a big discussion, but I think that's a summary of it. We did accept the commissioner's recommendations by a 3-2 vote. And again, I'm sure Representative Newton can add, but I think the main thing about it wasn't that it wasn't a comprehensive, thorough, well-researched report. It was really what's going to happen with this contingency, which really would come to this group and then the whole group, in my opinion.
Thank you. Doesn't DRA make a recommendation about contingency funds?
They always haven't had them here.
I know, but for municipalities, I know they do, so I thought.
Well, I'm sure that, we know that prices are, fluctuating. And I see an advantage, again, my opinion, to doing contingency so we don't have to come back a second time. But I realize there's a variety of opinions and also really a variety of philosophies about how you do a bond. So, again, I was satisfied. People spoke their minds. It came out 3-2. But we also knew it was then going to come to this group and the larger group. So that's really, it's a brief report, but I think that's the essence of what happened at the meeting.
Okay, yeah, to further a couple quick things because it is getting late. The concern with the contingency is if you say to somebody you want, they say they can pay your house for $3,000. and you say, good, I had 4,500 to spend. But you can bet before they're done, they're gonna think, I left some money on the table, it's now 4,200. And if the contingency isn't there, then anybody in business isn't gonna think they left money on the table, that's just how it works. The other part of the, situation was, we were concerned that there wasn't a plan, and I'll bring that up at the delegation meeting. Because the time is what it is, but, contingency is not a good idea, we didn't have one before, we got worried about it, so. But we'll discuss that at the delegation, but your chairman was correct, it was a good meeting with a lot of discussion.
So we have 3-2 vote for or against?
Four.
Yeah, we voted against it because actually, a lot of it was the contingency and there's no plan. This is not a plan, this capital improvements. You've gotta have deadlines. You've gotta have 6 years. If it's 6 years, you're gonna do this in 1 year, how much money? This the second year, how much money? There's none of that. Everything is urgent. We wanted the money, just give it to us and we'll determine the 6 years. No capital improvements program is done like that. The law that allows capital improvements says you can't do it. It says you have to have specific deadline. I'll read that at the delegation meeting too.
Okay, Representative Tenton.
Yeah, I just want
You
to,
were first.
I was, but that's okay. I just had a question about this plan. Usually CIPs for towns is yearly, so we reevaluate what's more important. Sometimes things will move 1 year to another as urgency. Is this only every 6 years? How does this roll out? I don't know who can
We've done it over 6 years because it costs, the estimate we have is it's $57,000 to float the bond, no matter what the size of the bond is. So instead of doing it year by year and paying $57,000 every year, because, $16 million, there probably isn't gonna, not probably, there isn't gonna be a year in the next 6 years when we wouldn't have to bond. So we figured instead of, right now, it's $57,000 for the 6 years. Or it could be $57,000 times 6 years. Which would be, over $300,000. So, we thought it'd be prudent to clump some items together. And also, when the bond is small, we don't attract as many bidders, because the bond will go out for public bid. So we wouldn't get as many bidders, if the bond was for $2 or $3 million. It was felt that we would attract more bidders if the bond was the size of a 6 year project. So those are the reasons why we did it for 6 years instead of year by year.
Well, and I can understand that part, but some of these are really big expenses, so it's not just some clump, there's a lot clumped. I understand that need. Is it something to consider maybe 3 years? I don't, it just seems like a lot in a larger span.
Well, whatever the delegation approves, is what we'll prioritize and do. We've talked here about, how critical these items are, to maintain the infrastructure of the county. The courthouse is in excess of, it's 50 years old. The jail is now 20 years old. The nursing home is, older than that. So, we're in a position now where we need to make some investments, in order to maintain, the integrity of the property that we have. And like the jail generates, about $8 million in revenue. So, do we want to keep the, system, that makes our partners that contribute to that $8 million happy? In fact, we're now approaching them about, a rather significant rate increase, which could bring our 8 million to 12 million. So we're trying to stay up and ahead of where we feel we need to be and doing it as economically as possible, considering the cost of a bond.
Okay, well, at this point, it's clear that, you know, we have to have some kind of a recommendation from the executive committee. Much of this discussion is going to be repeated to the full delegation, so I don't think we should have, we should make our decision now, yea or nay. And then we can take it to the full delegation at 7 o'clock.
I would like to ask him one question.
One question.
Just doing my math and looking at this, am I in the ballpark that if we did a 3-year bond, it would be pretty high with the essential needs of like 10 or even 12 million?
Oh, no doubt.
So really, a lot of this on this list with the 3-year idea, which I'm, would certainly willing to think about, would pull in 10 or 12 million from this, because there are things we have to do tomorrow. But I just wanted to get, is that in the ballpark?
That's accurate, yes, sir.
Okay, so just for our thought for later on, if we did want to do shorter than 6, it's still gonna be 10 or 12 million for the things we have to do by tomorrow.
Which begs a question.
But we might get a higher rate and
It
everything.
seems like 3/4 of this is front loaded as high.
Yeah.
Does that suggest there's a failure in past plans, that it's all coming now?
Well, I'm not, yeah, please don't.
Representative, I believe, when these buildings were built, we're starting to see similar failure rates at these stages, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. We have 50-year-old pipes, we have 50-year-old radiators, we have 50-year-old windows, we have 50-year-old sections of the roof and walls and foundation. It just so happens that this stuff is all coming together at once. It also happens that I'm keeping a close eye on a lot of things, making sure that we have a building for another 50 years. A lot of this stuff, unfortunately, if we had done it 5 or 6 years ago, some of these technologies might not even been there, for us to be able to do this type of work and get this stuff prepared.
Plus, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't get an approval on something that you wouldn't really approve the sewer line if the sewer line wasn't broken.
If we're gonna turn the building over, right? It's a lot of that.
As I've stated, I think at this time it's on us to have a motion to vote on a motion, and the full delegation has the ultimate responsibility. So, is there a motion? Representative Wall?
I'll move that.
Okay, you're moving what, to accept the commission's recommendation as stated. Okay, is there a second? Second by Representative Horgan. So at this point, we've had a lot of discussion. We realize that the delegation has the ultimate decision. Whatever we decide, the delegation will make its decision. Okay, so, I ask the clerk to follow that.
Bailey?
No.
Bixby?
Yes.
Burnham?
No.
Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Harrington?
No.
Horgan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
I vote yes. Newton?
So,
Petrie?
No.
Capenza?
No.
Crawford?
Yes.
Wall?
Yes.
And Smith?
there was six.
Eight to second.
Okay, so, that motion passes, 8-6. So approve issuance of 16,421,915 in bonds to fund the capital improvement plan. But I'm not sure why we're voting on that, because the delegation has to do that, so, we have to have a motion to have it this time. I don't think so, we have to do that. Okay, so if you want to approve the second quarter 2024 budget report, so who's gonna speak to that, Ray?
Yeah, I mean, expenses are on target, revenues, are there, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions. It seems there's less questions now than there normally is, so, less items for question.
Representative Newton.
Yeah, motion to approve the budget as presented.
Moved by Representative Newton, second by Representative Petrie. Further discussion, hearing none, clerk may call the roll.
Bailey,
Yes.
Bixby,
Yes.
Burnham,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Corrigan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Birch votes yes. Newton,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Potenza,
Yes.
Strafford,
Yes.
Wald. Yes. Smith,
Yes.
13-0.
14-0. Thank you. Any other business which may legally come before the subcommittee, before the committee, so I've already indicated. What's that? We already did that. We already did that on the voice. We can discuss it, but Representative Cecilia Rich has resigned. She's a member of the executive committee, and therefore she has to be replaced. So that is the call of the delegation. The delegation votes for the members of the executive committee. So I'll be bringing that matter before and there's just one other thing, and that is the county has entered into an MOU, which, I'm authorized to sign off on, but only with the approval of the delegation. So that will be brought up at the delegation meeting.
What's the MOU about?
An MOU.
Member of
What's it about?
Cooperative extension.
Yes,
Oh,
It's cooperative extension. It's been an MOU that's been in existence for 60
Oh, it's
years.
been going on forever. Yeah, it's the same one, right? We doing, is that correct?
Right. This is the same arrangement where it's the new one, with the new.
Doesn't tie the county to any, spending any money. It's just
We used to give them one.
What?
We used to give them one.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes, so, we'll take that up to the public delegation. Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Hi, everybody. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.